New
Wow,
music.
what an amazing song. Who chose it? I don't know. How are you?
I'm shocked that the music is new and very, very different. I mean, I thought I would have some say in the new music.
Um, no, I'm running the hoedown and the hoot nanny around these parts, so I'm just gonna have to take charge and rest in my masculine this year. It is what it is. We're already halfway through the year, but I'm choosing to be masculine for the rest of it. So
So it's dictatorship China that we're going for. Okay, got
mm,
you, heard you. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing? What did you do this week?
It's beautiful outside, so if it's nice, actually, even when it's not nice, I'll be outside. But it's been a good week. The weather's been beautiful. I can't wait to get back outside, to be honest. Hello, everybody. How is everybody? First of all,
Yeah, I'm so rude. Excuse me. Hello, everyone. Make sure to grab your coffee, water, or
yeah,
tea.
no, no, that's not okay. That was not okay.
It's okay. We can cut that part out. I don't want to be fired, so no. But since you didn't ask about my week, I'll just tell
Oh no,
you.
I did, but
I'll just tell you. It's definitely not looking crispy outside where I live. I live in a really dusty place. Like it's really like dusty, not like BWE Manosphere adjective dusty, but like dusty, like it's there's dust on the window sills, there's dust on the door, there's dust on the car. It's just a lot of dust here, and it's all in my eyes, it's all on my skin, it's everywhere, it's all in the house. It's just a lot of dust. I don't really like it. I'm not feeling it. It's not crispy, it's not giving what needs to be gave. And that's that on that. But
I will say, um, I think now you know how Black women feel. So, I mean, it's terrible, and I empathize with you. I can identify with that. But that's a taste of Black women, what they deal with when they go out into the world and interact with some of these Black men. It's just dust. Like sometimes you can't breathe. You're just like, ugh, 10 feet. Just that. Pause, please.
okay,
Don't come any further.
well,
But I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
since you want to talk about black men, I actually wanted to talk about a specific black man today. Um, before we get to Rollo, is the series split?
Sorry, did you say Rollo or Rollo?
I don't know his name. I don't care. It's the isn't that like a chocolate? It's like Rollos, something like that. No.
I will say the Crypt Keeper. It just helps. It just helps.
Well, they call him the Grand Wizard of Red Pill. But before we get to him, I did want to get to this young jock. Do you know who that is?
It's going down. I do,
Okay.
unfortunately. Oh my
Well,
God, I'm telling on my age. Okay, yeah.
while he is popular for that one hit, I'm not sure what other hits he's popular for, but he is popular because of that one hit. Um, Now he's making rounds on social media after posting a very vulnerable moment, which I would like to watch together. I'm going to put it on screen now. I can't play the audio because I think it's copyright, but we're just going to look at it and just see what's going on with Jock as I read what he wrote.
Oh God, is it a thesis?
Emotions. No hiding behind facades. Can I cry in front of the world? Why am I crying? This world is such a wicked place at times. Our kids are dying before they can live in these streets. Our homes are filled with hate because it's all around us. I'm sorry. Because it's all around us. Destruction is prevalent. Drugs are running rampant in our community. So many are confused. Ascension is a necessity. Let it out in front of the world. Do you ever feel like just letting it all out? Some will laugh, and that's expected. Some will tap in to see if I'm okay, and that's appreciated. I'm begging for mercy on all of us, no soul unaccounted for. Now, he said that some people are going to laugh at that, but that's not me. How do you feel about what he said? how do you feel about destruction and drugs running rampant through our community? And Young Jock, this being his not I missed the
Um,
moment for the violin all, but how do you feel about what Young Jock has said about the community?
I mean, he's act he's accurate. I mean, there are issues in the Black community. There are issues among Black people. Um, I mean, why? Listen, I don't want to seem hypocritical because I've always advocated for men to lean into their humanity, for them to tap into that emotional part of themselves. I think it's part of the deficit in them today and probably always has been. But this seems um, gratuitous. Like, if he's asking, can I cry in front of the world? Can I cry in front of, like, you can, but you probably shouldn't. um I mean, if it means that much to you, you can probably put yourself in a position to evoke some type of change, take initiative, start a program, or a charity. I think that this um I don't know why I'm receiving it this way. I just am. So
I hate
sorry.
this. Sir, you're rich. Go and put something into the community. Why are you crying online? That don't make sense to me. I don't think we absolutely can shame people for showing emotion, because you do not have to like break down and be a bubbling mess online. That is not showing emotion. Doesn't mean like break down every time you think about the community. Like, I don't think that's how that looks. Thema said, sing petty. No, sir. No, thank you. But I'll tell you what you can do. You can actually give Cur Vigilante a membership dance. Once you're back on stream, I will be screenshotting these and saving them so that everybody can get their membership dance. Welcome to the membership, by the way. Themis also said we both look good. I, of course, a little better, but it's nothing that anyone can compete with. So I'm not mad at you or anything like that, or trying to shame you. Anna's giving
Listen,
hopefully
I
before the plane. Anyway,
oh
yes.
my God. Oh my God. I
But
love
young
you, Themis. Thank you, Themis. You see how you just ruin things? You just ruin things.
look,
Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
my issue with young Jock is that he is rich and he has something that he can pour into the community, but instead he's pouring tears. Um, but if this is how he would like to express himself, I don't understand. Do people put the phone on record before they start crying, or is it after they've
Yeah.
already started? Do they?
It seems like a logistical nightmare, right? Like, I mean, but I mean, if he can kind of start and stop with the waterworks, he has a really big a really great career in acting. I would think that he has an extremely, I mean, that's award winning, right? It's like stop, start, edit. I mean, I personally, I can identify with the emotion behind the sentiment, because in many respects I agree, but it just seems like it's giving um don't do that. Don't do
Wait,
that
why are
online.
they? Why are
And
they in
and
the
also
comments?
shout out to me because I wore this for the 10th time, motherfuckers. Shout out to me.
Shout out to the washing machine, because that
Shout
is
out
a
to
thing
having
that.
one right across the right in my unit. Shout out to that. But yeah,
Why are people
nobody
in the
noticed.
comments saying he has 50, 11 kids? Apparently, he is pouring something into the community, but it doesn't look like resources. He's pouring something though. But
I
I
mean,
didn't want. Mhm. I didn't
it
want to.
seems like Rollo gave his advice a little bit too late, because yeah, Jock has about what, 8 kids, illegitimate. Well, I mean, he's gonna legitimize them, insofar as you know, just engaging in the typical bandit behavior. But you know, he probably should have listened to Rollo, and he wouldn't be online crying. He'd have more time. He'd have more resources, to make a difference in the community. That's the gag. That's the joke.
Um, but I didn't want to spend too much time on that. I actually wanted to talk about. I just. I don't think Young Jock said anything or gave anything at all.
It's
So
like
I don't. I'm
it's
done with
giving
it.
secondhand. It's giving secondhand embarrassment. I wish that I didn't have to see that, but you know what? Shout out to Petty. He just he's petty.
Um,
I mean, he's petty. What can I say?
what I did want to talk about was what I feel like is increasing. Maybe it's not increasing. Maybe it's just my news feed or what I see in my YouTube. But it feels like there's a lot of gun violence going on right now in the U.S. Um, to the point where now
More than you, sorry, more than you think is typical, or what do you mean?
more than I think is typical. That's why I say maybe it's just my news feed or what I'm seeing on YouTube. Maybe it's like an over coverage of it and things haven't changed. We're just knowing about it more. But what I saw this week was a school called Grand Rapids, um, literally banning backpacks from all schools after a third grader was found with a loaded gun um, in his backpack.
Jesus.
And what really caught my eye was that this was a repeated occurrence. This is what the superintendent said, quote, "This is a repeated occurrence that we have to get a hold of," unquote. Um, and they said it's a drastic step, but they think it's necessary to ensure safety and blah, 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 blah. It bans all bags that are large enough to conceal a weapon the size of a firearm, excluding lunch boxes, as well as small compacts to carry like personal hygiene item. And I think musical instruments for students who play them, they can bring them in the cases. Not even clear bags are allowed, and all bags that are brought are subject to search. Um,
I
what
have to say that America has a very interesting way of like kind of addressing the issues. I feel like banning backpacks is sort of it's like putting a band-aid on like a gaping, gushing wound. I think like gun control is a huge issue in America. Um, and it's an extremely politically charged issue. So I understand not, I understand sort of the trepidation in attacking it or even engaging with it. But the source of a lot of the fear and a lot of the sort of the gun violence has a lot to do with like gun control and regulations and policy and legislation. And I think that the thing about Americans, and I'm sorry, shout out to any Canadians, um, guns, yeah. But keep that up there. Ooh, she said a chokehold.
um,
I think I just want to say this one thing, and then we can move on. But I just think that Americans have this really interesting relationship with liberty. Um, so I think that anything that compromises or threatens, their liberty in any capacity, I think that Americans are very quick to radicalize. They're very quick to sort of maneuver. So listen, good luck out here in Canada. We have these very strict gun laws, and we're okay for the most part. But good luck to you guys because that is a huge political undertaking. Good luck.
um, Again, what I found really interesting about this school specifically, was that this was the fourth time this school year, and it's only May, that the staff at the school have found a gun on campus, and each time the student involved was middle school aged or younger. With I think 1 week ago, a 7-year-old bringing an unloaded gun to the elementary school. So the school is saying that the ban might cause inconvenience for the families, but that safety for young people in the community is more important. And I feel like they are banning everything besides guns, which is a little weird to me. I don't get into politics too much, but that actually feels like they're gonna get everything but guns. First, it was clear backpacks. I'm pretty sure at some point I remember you now being required to wear clear backpacks to school because you can't conceal anything. And now you're not allowed to have any backpack. But shout out to the kids, I guess, who will no longer have any heavy textbooks to carry home. Shout out to that. So,
I know that you want to move on. What's the policy with lunch bags? I mean, surely there are other things you could put a little 4-5 in, no?
I mean, Forget the bags for a second. Do you not feel like generally when a child is bringing a firearm to school, it's probably, especially these are like middle school and elementary school children, this is probably usually going to be a case of something that's wrong with the parents? No, whether that's
Yeah,
like improperly storing a firearm, or I think it's generally going to be something along that line. So I don't understand what a bag's going to do.
it's
I mean, kids
so
have pockets.
listen, kids are resourceful, kids are resilient, but without the proper guidance, without the proper resources, and without the proper community and social networking, kids are going to kid. Like, especially kids um, who are in these types of environments where violence and criminality are running rampant, are and extremely prevalent. If there are no fathers in the home, you're going to exacerbate that. So the root cause of the problem is going to cost a lot, way more money. So the root cause is going to cost America. It's just going to be it's a financial undertaking that clearly America doesn't have the fiscal wherewithal to take on at the moment. So listen, I don't agree with it. I think that you have to attack things at the source, and putting a band-aid on things or mandating kind of like arbitrary measures that may or may not make a difference. Because banning backpack, is that really, like, are you going to see a significantly lowered rate of violence? Like, probably not. Or not violence, but or instances in which kids bring weapons to school. Maybe they're going to start bringing knives or things that are more compact that they can fit on their person. Like, listen, attack the problem at the root. Okay.
So the reason I brought that up is because have you heard of have you heard of a woman named Ariana Preston?
I have not, and you said something about her.
So
No.
Ariana Preston is a police officer. She was a black woman police officer. I believe she was 25 years old, and
Oh
she
my God.
was shot and unalived this past weekend after finishing her shift. And the reason I believe all of the stuff regarding the backpacks and school shootings and such like that, I think they started coming up my news feed because I was doing a little bit of looking into this case. The reason I was doing looking into this case is because it felt like the men who unalived her were, it was a 19-year-old boy, another 19-year-old boy, an 18-year-old boy, and a 16-year-old boy. And when I saw the type of discourse going on online regarding this case, it was mostly it mostly had to do with I guess there was a lot of talk about single mothers. Actually, I don't know if these all four of these people are in single mother households. I don't know if they're in two parent households. I don't think we have that information currently, which is why the discourse kind of weirded me out. But regarding what I just said about when a child does something at school, I'm generally going to be looking at the parents, not backpacks, not the child even. Well, I will be looking at the child, but I'll also probably be looking at the parents and what's going on at the household for something like this to occur. However, when I was watching this case, the type of discourse around everyone seemingly completely ignoring the four gentlemen who shot her and going straight for the I guess the caricature of a single mom, because I have no idea if all of these people are at single mother households. It was very off-putting to me, but I think they were doing it because of what her mother said, which I'd like to play now. Um,
Okay. I mean, like, put a one in the chat if you are shocked that Black men are again, for the billionth time, not holding Black men accountable and blaming single mothers for their aberrant degeneracy and criminal pathology. Put a one if you're surprised. Put a two if it's just another Saturday.
so really quick, did you want me to actually go through the rundown kind of what happened? Because they had a crime spree pretty much for 2 hours where they were like stealing cars, robbing people, and it ended with them unaliving her. Well, never mind,
Yeah.
that's the rundown pretty much. Her mother, um, interestingly enough, told reporters that she was full of anger and rage and questions after her daughter's death. But she says that her own experiences have inspired a feeling of compassion towards the suspects. So I wanted to hear her mother speak on that. Let's see what
This
she had to
is
say.
this is triggering. I'm triggered.
To her. We poured into her education. But as I said in that courtroom today, the people I really felt sorry for was those boys. I felt sorry for them because nobody obviously didn't pour into them. Nobody told them that they were loved. Nobody told them that you can do anything, like I constantly preach to my daughters.
In court, it was revealed 16-year-old defendant Jalen Frazier admitted to a friend the shooting was his work. He fired a gun at her, and then Preston shot at him and the other defendants. So they shot and killed her.
As crazy as this may sound, I pray for their family. I really, really do. I pray for their family. Anytime you can shoot somebody and say, that was my work, what kind of human would say that about another human being? We poured into.
I'm triggered.
So what I don't want to demonize the mother or anything like that.
No.
And I do want to say I understand praying for the family. Well, I can't say I really understand praying for the families of the perpetrators. I would pray for the family of the victim usually, but I'm not like, maybe you can bring some explanation to me because I actually didn't understand that part. Why would you pray for the killer's family?
So there's a fundamental truth to what she's saying, insofar as a lot of I guess I don't work in the criminal justice arena. That's not my wheelhouse. But I have worked with women who have been SA'd, AR'd, and things like that. There's a fundamental truth or an idea around forgiving the perpetrators, and give it, and that kind of sometimes can give closure to victims and victims' families and things like that. The one thing that I'm never going to do is police or try to govern the way an individual processes or processes grief or chooses to mourn. That's not, I think that's disgusting. The way that people are going to manage this trauma, they're going to do what they need to do. But I think that this sort of, it's an attitude around Black men, and it's been like this for millennia, where Black men they engage in the most diabolical, the most debaucherous behavior, and Black women specifically will take on the attitude that you have to have empathy for them. It's not their fault. They didn't have their fathers. They didn't have what they needed.
Yeah, that was going to be part of my critique as well. Not to be overly harsh to her again, because she is suffering something and people deal with stuff differently. But it feels almost as if you're absolving. The only thing I heard was absolving them of anything by saying, oh, well, they probably just weren't raised good. Oh, they probably just didn't have the best family life.
Not almost. Not all. I don't think. Not. It's not even almost. You are absolving them. You are justifying, absenteeism, fatherless homes, and because I can assure that they're bandits that had no father, and if they did, their father was a alpha omega bandit. But that justification, it sets Black people back. And I understand, I understand, I promise that I understand where it's coming from. Fundamentally, I get it, but it's setting us back. Because while you are pouring all of that empathy, while you are resonating with Black men who are turning you into a victim, who are victimizing and running terror through your communities, those Black men don't have that empathy for you. I could understand if it was a sort of a two-way street, you know, like reciprocity. I'm all about reciprocity, but Black men are not, they're not engaging with Black women who are victims of violence in that way. They never have, ever. And I think that this attitude, this mentality is setting us, like, I would say pre-slavery. It's just bringing us back. It's a problem.
Yeah, ultimately it felt enabling to me. A lot of the comments felt that way. I'm reading some of them now. She's absolutely correct. No one poured into these boys. We have to do better as parents in the community. And I don't even necessarily disagree with the idea that, yeah, we should do better at parents and we should do better as a community. But it feels like a lack of accountability for men who have killed someone.
I think that's the fundamental truth, right? And you can't, it's difficult to divorce that truth that these, you know, like young Black men need help, they need fathers, these communities need help, they need resources, they need access. These things, two things can be true at the same time. And it's sometimes difficult to divorce the idea that while they do need those things, they are also, there's, you know, it doesn't justify their behavior, the criminality, the murder rates. Like I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I would never teach my family. I would never teach anyone. Listen, if you're going to engage in any behavior, you are going to understand, you're going to learn the hard way that every action has a reaction. There's a consequence to everything that you do. Sometimes things that, even when you don't do things, there are consequences. And I think that Black women and men coming out after something like this and saying, oh, you know, focus on the problems and the system and the fatherlessness. I think this is the reason that Black women don't have space to be heard, to be believed, to be able to I guess it's to have an identity in which they are disenfranchised, disadvantaged, victimized. You're creating the environment in which no one is going to see you for who you are or for what's happened to you. And no grace and empathy is going to be awarded to you as a result. It's such a counterintuitive problem, but it's also so fundamental to who we are as humans, right? Like to have empathy. I think, I don't know. It's a fucking problem, yo. It's a problem.
To kind of stay on the topic of, and this will be my last one before we can get into our main topic, but just kind of in conjunction with this topic of what feels like enabling behavior. Where'd you go? Sorry, you went inside out and upside down 2 miles away. But and again, I won't spend too much time on this just so we can get to the main topic. But I saw Jonathan Majors and Megan Good. I believe they're allegedly dating, which according to TMZ, a source with direct knowledge told them that over the course of the last several weeks, Jonathan and Megan have gotten close, and their relationship is fairly new, and that they were at the Alamo Draft House in LA last weekend to see a movie. So it doesn't seem like they're hiding anything that they're doing. I'm not going to spend too much time on that just because I think I saw Cynthia live today covering the same thing. So I'm sure she's probably going to do a much better job of it than I can. But I kind of wanted to touch on what we just spoke about, as well as what Themis was speaking about regarding Chris Brown and the people around him, or the people around alleged abusers, engaging in what seems like enabling behavior. And I would say, for me specifically, the women, I'm going to be questioning, because when it comes to the idea that men are going to hide what other men do sounds normal to me. I don't think it's right. I don't think that's correct behavior, but that sounds like something I would expect men to do. We've talked about before how apparently every woman knows a man who has essayed someone, but no man. Oh, my friends don't do. I don't know anyone who does that, right? And there seems to be either a disconnect or the men are hiding something, which I do think they're hiding. And that's always been understandable to me, not something I agree with, but something I understand for men to do for other men. But I guess
To hide, sorry,
my
you
question would be
understand?
why. I understand why men would want to protect other men who have done heinous things. My question would be, I don't understand why women would want to protect men who are doing the same. I don't
I
understand
don't
how
think that
Megan
there's
Good,
a
for
difference.
example,
I don't
I
think
don't,
there's a difference. I don't understand why men would want to protect men who are engaging in aberrant behavior, and I don't understand women who would want to do it.
no, I understand why men would want to do it. When I say I understand but don't agree, what I mean is if you protect that type of behavior, I believe it now enables you to engage in that type of behavior. So I would understand a man saying, I don't want this man to be held accountable, because I believe some men probably engage in behavior like that too. And for them to hold a Jonathan Majors or Chris Brown or someone accountable mean they have to be held accountable too. So I can see that those men want to protect men who have done those things because they're protecting themselves. I don't understand why women would protect those men.
Well, I don't think that the reasons would be particularly different. I don't think that they're materially different. I think that some women have been SA'd, some women have been AR'd, some women have been physically abused, and some of them go through life copying pleas and justifying that behavior in others as a way to rectify or justify what happened to them when they were, whenever it happened to them. I don't think the reasons are that different. I also don't think that um, I still don't understand why men would want to, like, I understand, okay, I do the same thing that you do, so let me protect you so that we can protect us as a collective. But women are doing something that seems much more, I guess, much more destructive to them because the violence is being imposed upon them by men. But I think it might be more problematic. It's more problematic that men are not holding them accountable. I think women not holding men accountable is kind of par for the course. It's part of the socialization. It's part of the stage that Black men set. And they're just sort of, operating in that socialization, operating in that conditioning. So I think men, I don't get it. It's problematic. And that speaks to a larger problem where I'm kind of like, I have to look at men and wonder if there is something truly wrong with them as a species. And I'm starting to, as a class, as a group, I think there is something wrong with men. Um, but I don't know. I don't feel that way about women. I could be biased, but I think it's more important that men do it. And the fact that women are not, to me, seems like you charge it to the game.
Um, Wait, people are side eyeing me. She said, I
Get in line. I've been
that's like
side-eyeing
saying,
this time.
sure, I understand why someone would rob a bank, but I don't agree with it. Yeah, I do understand, like someone who's starving, for example, or a single mother stealing food from a grocery store. I understand why people do stuff. I don't necessarily have to agree with it. I don't think that's controversial to say, but
No,
yeah,
but
I'm kind of just asking the question around. I think you answered it well as some people in the comments regarding some people being maybe male identified, or some people having internalized, some women having internalized misogyny themselves, the same way that men do.
and
So,
trauma that it's a sometimes, like, I know Stockholm syndrome, the last time that I looked at the literature, it was like debunked to some degree, but when it was really popular in psychology, Stockholm syndrome, that's kind of what the Stockholm syndrome does. Your people identify with their abusers, they identify with the perpetrators, and it's a coping mechanism. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism that people learn over time because it's safer not to fight or push back or question, or wonder or worry about why someone did something to you. It just, in order to live, in order to survive, it's like, this is how they cope. So yeah, there's a lot of different things happening, but I think something's wrong with men. It's like,
CJ asked, thank you for the super chat, by the way. CJ asked, how does one navigate friendship with an alleged abuser? That's a question you're going to have to ask Megan Good and Tiana Taylor and Usher, but you can't ask me because I'm going to navigate my way out.
I think
And
that
maybe
Megan Good thinks that she is I think she thinks she's the unicorn. And one thing I'll say, Megan Good is gorgeous. Like dime, top of the line, cute face, small waist. And I think maybe she thinks that I think she thinks that if she can do better than Becky, it's a W. Like it's a W. Like, and I think that she thinks she will be the exception to the rule, and that's just not how. Doesn't work that way with abuse. It doesn't work that way in life. Generally, the rule is the rule, and it is for a reason.
So that's actually really interesting that you said that regarding maybe she feels like she's the unicorn and that it won't be her. I'm pretty sure, again, I heard Themis talking about that when it came to Tiana Taylor and how she engaged with her friendship with Chris Brown after everything he did to Rihanna. But there is this is something I'd like to look into. I wasn't looking at like the Black community specifically, but rather how I feel like conservative women, for example, feel around SA or R. And they tend to have more of a, when it comes to harassment, for example, more of a boys are just being boys, more of a like leniency towards it and a tendency to excuse it, as well as when it comes to women being victims. I think they tend to have more of a the reason you're a victim is because kind of a victim blamey thing. You were out at the wrong
your
time. You were
skirt,
hanging around the wrong people.
your
We
skirt
can't
was
stop the
short.
men from doing this.
Yeah.
You have to take accountability for your side. So that was something interesting that I wanted to look into. But love Latoya, thank you for the super chat. I don't think that all molestation or SA is disclosed from men to men either.
It's not.
I mean, I agree, but I also definitely think that to the degree that it is disclosed, I mean, Charleston White got up on Fresh and Fit and started talking about I R'd women. Like, he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't hide it. He just flat out says it on the internet. He goes in videos separately saying he believes Asian women should be R'd, Asian children should be R'd. Like, this stuff is out on public display. I see your face. I'm not putting any words in his mouth. These are things that he has said online that are available. I don't think I could play them without getting the whole video demonetized. But this man will come up publicly and say this and still be able to get a seat at Fresh and Fit and able to talk to millions of men about this. So they're all listening to it and they're around the same table and just openly talking about it. So, I mean, while I do agree with the comment, thank you, by the way, lovely. Love Latoya. But I do agree with that comment, but I do also think they will definitely openly talk about it, but think it's okay. I don't even think most of them think that what they're doing sometimes is SA or
and we know that there have been studies that have demonstrated it could be like a linguistic issue, or I guess there's a sort of disconnect between describing an action and the language that is used to describe the action or whatever. I mean, I get it, I understand, but even, I mean, all things considered, even when some men do know, when they do have the mental acuity and the language and the the intellectual capacity, they will justify that behavior. And this is where I kind of have to go back to the Black community. I kind of have to go back to Black women, because Chris Brown, I'm not sure about, what's that guy's name? What's his name? Something White? Ironic.
Jonathan.
Who?
Oh, Charleston White.
Charleston White, right. So I don't know if Black women are bolstering his platform or his notoriety or his career. I don't really know that much about him, but I know that Chris Brown has been given passes and he's been given opportunities to rebrand, to change, to revitalize, and to show, Black women in the Black community that he's a changed man. He loves Black women, blah, blah, blah. So this is where Black women, we have to, like, our feet need to be held to the fire, because if we're going to accept the behavior, and not Black women in this chat, because we overstand, we know what time it is, but just in general, I think when you accept the behavior, it doesn't even really matter for how long. You've set a precedence, a cultural precedence, and it's very difficult to revitalize that culture, and it's very different for sort of the outside world to see you any different, right? So even if you're not engaging in the behavior, it's still going to be difficult for people to divorce them, to divorce you from the cultural debauchery that you sort of allowed to metastasize over a course of decades or however long. Like we have to like stay away from they need to go away. Go away, bandits. Go away.
Yes. 2L says Boosie willingly allowed his children to be SA. He paid for the women to carry out the acts. He said he's teaching them to be men. Yes. And the community, well, I'm going to say half of the community got behind Boosie and said, I'm going to give the same treatment to my child because that's a part of being a man.
It's like we need to no, we're not gonna stick beside him. Like I'm gonna stick beside him. That's my man. I'm gonna no.
So regarding that super chat from 2Ls, actually, can we talk about how R is not ostracized in black male circles? Eldridge Cleaver wrote a whole book confessing his history of R of point blank word document women. I think that's interesting also because the men that we've listed off today who are kind of getting a protection from the community have been black men. Jonathan Majors, Chris Brown. Again, all of this stuff is alleged so far. For Jonathan Majors specifically, Chris obviously has a history of stuff. But
Chris is a bandit.
Charleston White, these are all black men after all. So yeah,
I mean,
there is an insulation in the community that you have as a black man from getting a type of judgment. We just watched 4 black men. Well, we didn't watch it, but we watched a mother sympathize with her daughter's killers and say they were simply not, they didn't have the correct teaching. And if they had have just been given more compassion and such. So yeah, I do think there's a type of insulation in this community that there isn't externally.
And that's kind of, I think that we should probably talk about that next week because, and I find it very interesting when black men in particular, because, you know, all men fall under the umbrella in terms of, you know, advantages and benefits that they acquire through patriarchy just by virtue of their maleness. And that's for me, the irony. It's like black men they complain about a lot. They have a lot of issues with, you know, the system and but they are able to maneuver in the world in a way that black women are not able to. And if black men had the same capacity as black women, if they had the same resilience and the same, I think, you know, mental fortitude, black men could really shake and move. Like I truly believe they could really like shake and move. They could really maneuver and do things that they needed to do, because it's just a matter of taking advantage of taking advantage of the situation that you're in.
So you're rooting for black men. You have high hopes.
No, they're finished. First of all, they're done. I already said there needs to be a human receptacle. I think that they need to be in the garbage. It's over. We're past the point of no return. But I'm saying that they are awarded advantages and benefits that black women are not, and black women are able to transcend and still move and shake and maneuver as black women, when black men are sitting there crying and complaining as men in a patriarchy where they have a degree of insulation and protection that they simply refuse to utilize or lean into for the right reasons. They'll lean into it if they want to be abusive, if they want to be degenerate, if they want to be bandits. They will lean into it. But in terms of advancing the community, in terms of building communities and families, hell to the no. No. They, you know, bandits want to be bandits. Like the Hamburglar wants to be a Hamburglar. What can I say?
I wanted to welcome Darcy the Mom to the membership. I did screenshot your comment so that Themis can give you a membership dance.
I have my own little dances, but I kind of look like Mr. Burns, so I'm not gonna.
Give us a quick dance for the new member real quick.
No. We'll have a stream where we play music. Remember, I told you we're going to do like the get ready with me. We're going to play music. I'll do my thing.
Actually, now that you say that, you wanted to introduce something regarding Rollo. Let's get into our actual topic for today. I think I'm done discussing black men for the day. Let's discuss some white men, because apparently You had something you wanted to speak on regarding Rollo. As you do that, I'm going to grab a glass of wine.
Okay. I know you guys are gonna hate me after this, and you know what? I can deal with that. You can hate me, but I'm gonna love you. You know what I'm saying? Um, so this whole debacle with Rollo, aka the Crypt Keeper, aka the grandfather, I think that he's onto something. Let me explain. Let me explain. Okay. So I understand that he might be remediated to the extent that he doesn't know the definition of advice. And now he wants to cop a plea and backpedal like he is Lance Armstrong. He wants to just, I wasn't giving advice. I don't give advice. But this is how you become a high value man. We understand you have an extremely tentative and shaky understanding in relationship with the English lexicon and vernacular. Cool. But I think that there are some men who subscribe to the Crypt Keeper's dysfunction. Like, listen, it's beyond remedial. You know it's remedial when, you know it's bad when he can't define an integral and fundamental part of a movement. Sorry, that he implemented, that he pioneered, that he literally his entire career has been predicated on elements of high value men, what it means to be one. And I'm a high value crypt keeper, and this is how I became a high value crypt keeper. But all of a sudden, he doesn't know. I think it's interesting. We'll talk about that later. But maybe men should get vasectomies.
So
maybe I mean, maybe he's right. I think that there is a section or a sect of men who subscribe to Crypt Keeper's fundamentally flawed ideology, who probably should not have their genes replicated in any way whatsoever. Like they shouldn't even get like amoebas or fish or like pets. These are some like people that evolution just can't get their hands on sometimes people evade like evolution, you know what I'm saying? And I think in that instance, some of these bandits should get a snip. So I think maybe Rollo was right.
So first, I was actually very interested in, I didn't get to say this on Themis' stream yesterday, so I'll briefly cover it today. I was really interested in the fact that he couldn't give a definition for what it means to be a high value man, even though he's the the Grand Wizard of Red Pill and the Manosphere and stuff. That was quite interesting. He had a circular definition where it was like, what's a high value man? It's whatever you want it to be. Well, yeah, but what is it to you? Whatever you want it to be. Anyway, first I wanted to look at the advice that Annalise says she agrees with. Really quickly, let me put that on screen, and then a 2-minute clip about his definition of a high value man. So here's the advice, and I'll go down the list and read it. He says it's the quickest path to becoming a high value man. What a high value man is, we don't know. He don't know. So I guess this is a list for nothing and for nobody, but let's read it anyway. Number 1, do not get married. Number 2, avoid family creation. Number 3, vasectomy in your 20s. Number 4, live consistently. Number 5, eliminate all sedations. Number 6, learn game and networking. Number 7, play to your strengths and build wealth. And number 8, resist easing up on your focus. Now,
number 9.
Before you
go on, number 9 is it's whatever you want it to be. He just forgot to put that on the list, but number 9 is actually whatever high value man is whatever you want it to be. So I wrote that down so I wouldn't forget.
Apparently. Now, before we start judging this man's list, what I wanted to do is see if he can define high value man for us. This is about a 2-minute long clip, and let's see what happens in this clip, because I'm actually really interested to know what it is.
I want to say that this is like analogous to the Jim Jones trying to describe what an NFT is. So if
No,
you
no, no.
remember what an NFT is,
I'll show you what it's analogous to. I'll show you what it's analogous to. Actually, I'm glad you said that because I'll show you what it's analogous to right after this clip.
What is your definition of a high value man?
It doesn't matter. That's not what I was talking about in this.
Doesn't matter.
Isn't it literally what you're talking about? That's what the first part of the tweet is: how to become a high value man.
The fastest way to become a high value man is to recognize the fact that you've got sacrifices to make. Okay.
So
Like
what is
grandpa
that?
telling like stories from Vietnam. Like, just say, what is a high value man? It's the first part of the tweet. What does that mean?
You tell me what a high value man is. Because here's the thing: is it doesn't matter what I'm going to say is a high value man. You guys are fucking
because it's your fucking tweet.
It doesn't matter what I say is a fucking high value man because everybody.
Again, I haven't heard the definition of high value man yet. Maybe I'm not listening closely enough. Let me just listen for a couple more seconds. I don't think I'll watch this whole thing because it seems redundant, but let me just see if I can kind of get the definition out of him.
Takes this. The point of the fucking tweet is that everybody is going to take this and then insert their own definition of what a fucking high value man is.
What if a high value
That's
man
the
is
bait.
having 12 kids when you're 16? Then your tweet doesn't work, does it? What if your definition of a high value man is being getting into a trade and having 5 kids by the time you're 22? Then it also the definition of a high value man is being an esports professional.
You're absolutely making my point for me.
Okay, so I have not yet. No, I don't know the definition still. He said you can be a high value man. Apparently, he and Destiny. He said you're making my point for me. So apparently, you can be a high value man if you're 16 with 10 kids, or you play esports and sit at home all day and you're lazy. But let me tell y'all what that argument was giving me. Let me tell you what it was giving me. This is what the argument was giving to me. I'll just play this since it's shorter than that.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. It's hard to explain in a 15 seconds.
Yeah, time.
I mean,
Yes, I need to find out whatever the name is of that that newscast woman, so that I can make sure to follow her show. Apparently, she's on the Hill, but yeah, she was serving looks and she was serving everything that needed to be served to the white lady who wrote a book on wokeness but don't know what wokeness is, and that's what it feels like we were watching with Rollo Tomasi.
that's what happens when you're a white woman talking about woke. Let's just put that.
Not talking
that
about woke. Not talking. She wrote an entire book on woke. You didn't. You're writing theses on woke. What is woke?
So,
I mean, woke is.
Listen, if you want to be like the woke, if you want to act like you have your PhD, like this is what, like in a few years, I promise you, these white girls are gonna push for like courses like wokeism. What is it? It's probably already a part of higher academic institutions, but this is exactly why, like, stay in your wheelhouse, stay within your like intellectual and cultural purview. If you are I'm sorry, this sounds so bad, but like this is why we have issues on the left. It's like these privileged, you know what? No, don't do it, Anna. Fuck it.
Don't do it, Anna.
What I want to say is, if there's no clear definition of what a high value man is, if the definition kind of moves and changes.
Wait, real quick, we do have a definition. Chanel said a high value man is a bus driver. Okay, now we know what framework we're going off of. Go ahead.
Listen, even with that framework, there's no need for these bandits to be swallowing that dusty red pill. Now, is there? I mean, like, I think it's so ironic. And someone also said in the chat, when Sneeko is the white knight when he's copping a plea for the other side of an argument against like arguably someone that he has looked up to, someone he has reverence for, someone he is so enmeshed with, just in terms of the ideological framework, you have problems as a community, right? Like, that you're shaking it rough if Sneeko is pushing back and copping pleas. That's the number one problem. But if they're high value man, if it doesn't matter, if it's whatever you want it to be, if it's, I mean, what do you need the red pill for? What are you like? What problems could you possibly have with women if you get to define your manhood, your humanity, what it means, your success, your familial dynamics and structures? There's no need for it. So Crypt Keeper, obviously, like, he didn't take his dialysis. He's a little bit like off his Crypt Keeper rocker, sorry, because I mean, you've devalued your entire platform. You've devalued your entire, as cancerous as it is, because the red pill is an ideologic cancer, but you've devalued and debunked it essentially. So, these niggas they're just not smart. And when Sneeko is the smart one,
you can talk.
You have a problem.
You can talk all you want. I like that any young man can go to Fresh and Fit and they're going to get their Oprah on and say, look under your chair. You're high value. You're high value. You're all high value. Everybody gets a high value. I love it. But you said that you agree with some of his advice, so I need to know about that.
I agree with getting a vasectomy. Everything else to me is
so you
like,
agree with, wait, that's not his advice specifically, is getting a vasectomy in his 20s, but the rest of the advice, the 8 steps, you don't agree with.
I don't care for the 8 steps. To me, they're arbitrary. Like, I could read some of those steps like inside of a Snapple container. Like, sometimes Snapple gives really good advice, and sometimes these red pill bandits run around thinking they're Nostradamus, when really, like, you could get the same advice from like a fortune cookie or a Snapple, friggin' Snapple lid. So, like, shut the hell up and slap yourself. But I do agree that yes, some of these bandits, specifically these bandits, the incel bandits, who are, I think, like, psychologically, possibly fundamentally off, should they procreate? Probably not. Do we need another generation of women hating, like, pathologically misogynistic bandits running around with like more technology, more access to guns? Probably not. So Crypt Keeper,
again,
set up a clinic and snip.
So you agree it is good advice for men to get a vasectomy in their 20s?
Yeah, men who subscribe to and adhere to red pill ideologic cancer. Yeah, you're the cancer. If you listen, I'm a firm believer. Like, I'm a very simple person. I feel like birds of a feather flock together. I think that if you don't engage in a detrimental behavior directly, but you endorse it or try to insidiously justify it, it's the same thing.
Real quick, Alpha Omega said incels are the safest men for women statistically. Don't know what he's citing. Tyrones are the least safest. Many studies show this. Don't know what he's citing. But someone needs to tell him. Well, I can. Tyrone and the incels are the same man, actually. So
citation needed. Citation needed. Tyrone.
I don't think anybody should get any type of permanent type of
I don't think that anybody should be. I don't think that anybody should be like. Listen, incels are incels for a reason, and I'm not going to pretend that there isn't any sociological pressure or sociological impacts, or maybe social sort of like outcomes that have made it more difficult. Social realities that have made it more difficult for some men to. To acquire or engage in meaningful relationships. But the incels that I'm thinking of, the ones who are pathologically problematic, I'm sorry, but no one, like literally, no one should be going through hoops of fire. And you don't even leave your house for one of them. A bandit and an incel. The only difference between a bandit and an incel. Actually, let's really think of the differences. Let's really like, what's the difference between a bandit? A bandit will come to your hood. They'll shoot it up. They'll pump drugs in the streets. Incel might not. Incels typically, clinically, will probably be a little bit more averse to crowds, to socializing. So maybe that's a difference. That's a delineation. A bandit will blame you for all of the ills in society. He'll blame you for not, for not checking for his kid or paying child support. An incel is going to blame a woman who doesn't want to sleep with them because they just don't want to sleep with them, and then blame women for all the ills in society. Blame women for all of these societal changes that men feel are unjust and unfair and difficult to navigate through. Shut the hell up, stop crying. Yep, a bandit and an incel. Tomato, meat, tomato. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no real discernible material difference. A bandit is gonna bandit, and an incel is gonna incel. So, in fact, I'm pretty sure most school shootings are. I'm pretty sure that those perpetrators are in some way. They're like, they hover around or engage in incel community or incel ideology, some problematic ideology. And a bandit is just gonna, like, he'll shoot up the school if you step on his J's. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a problem. This is the same kind of problem.
So you're saying both Tyrone and the incels need to get vasectomies. Nancy at Night says, I hope Annalicia never changes. Love her energy. Hard disagree. Auntie Ruckus, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Auntie Ruckus says, true, the entire pill falls apart if a high value man means nothing. No, apparently it doesn't fall apart. Apparently people will just completely ignore that the Grand Wizard of Red Pill had no definition for what he's writing a book on, what he has a whole ideology on, what he has a whole YouTube channel on. Apparently they will just ignore that to continue to trash women. So I wish it would fall apart, but unfortunately I'm going to have to disagree.
Right, so they're going to ignore reality. Essentially, you're saying they're going to ignore the reality. They're going to ignore objectivity, and these are like really fundamental, I think, components in life that you really kind of have to engage with meaningfully. It's like, yeah, maybe you should probably, be introspective enough to understand the difference between, your objective feelings and your subjective feelings, but whatever. So you think that, Petty, and you think that these men should be able to go on and procreate. So they understand that, they understand that their core belief system and their worldviews have been devalued and have been debunked, but they're going to continue to adhere to them and subscribe to them for the sake of denigrating and.
Would you call something like that delusion? Living in delusion, pretty much?
No, it's not delusion.
The fact that their entire worldview, I feel like, should, in my mind, should fall apart. It's all inconsistent. It's all hypocritical and contradictory to itself. So with Fresh and Fit, Rollo, and all these people sometimes contradicting themselves several times within the same paragraph, as we saw in his book. To believe all of this, with all that being said, I feel like you don't think they're living in delusion. No.
I think that people make choices in terms of what they are going to believe. This might happen at different stages in people's lives, but we generally, I think, we choose to believe what we think. Some people will choose to believe what they want to believe. Generally, that's what I think. That's what the manosphere and the bandosphere and red pill remedials. That's their thing. But you also have to, like, again, if we're gonna chalk this up to delusion, what accountability do these people have? There's no account. If you're delusion is a part of psychosis. That means you're literally not operating in real time in the real world with the rest of us.
So to clarify, a delusional person who believes all of the red pill ideology, you don't have a problem with them having children. It would just be the people who have a sound mind but still believe it, who you think should have a.
I don't think that you have a sound mind if you believe it. I think that if
so
you
do they have a sound mind, or are they?
No, listen to what I'm saying to you. I think that after a certain age, I understand young men being impressionable, being sort of restless and listless and lacking guidance, blah, 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 blah. But when you get to a certain age where if you are not taking hold of your life, and you're choosing to believe in a cancerous ideology, I think that something's wrong with you. I think that something is wrong with most men in the red pill. That is my fundamental belief.
Okay, I agree, but think about like delusional disorder, right? Think of some of the signs and symptoms: a feeling of being exploited, like a lot of these men feel, a readiness and response and reaction to perceived slights.
Yeah,
Right? These are the men who you'll be like, I have a boyfriend, and they'll like jump at you and get violent because you said you're not interested. They'll start insulting you and stuff like this, persistently holding grudges, which they do against women. You're telling me you don't feel like the majority of these men have some form of delusion? I mean, I'm not a like mental health expert. I can't diagnose people, but
I just said that I would hypothesize clinically that there is. I don't think that it's delusion. I think it's a maladaptation. I think that it's a coping mechanism that's sort of rooted in trauma. I think that again, genes are a gun, and your environment is the trigger. So I think that there's interplay between their environment and their sort of biological makeup. But I think the majority of men who subscribe to this, the majority of red pillars and manosphere morons, I think that there is something neurologically wrong. I don't think that I would chalk it up to delusion. I wouldn't say delusion. I think that there's a lot of things at play, but at the core of it, it's something's off with you, something's wrong with you, and you need to stay over there and not procreate, because I mean, let's be honest, do we need more of that in the world? Like, is the world just dying for more of that? I feel like we're not. We don't need it. We don't want it. We want them to go away.
Well, we're over the hour mark that we were supposed to stop at. So I'm going to post a link in the chat for people to come up if they disagree or had any comments on anything we said today. I disagree with you regarding men who are delusional getting vasectomies. But I'm not about to fight it, because I feel like I'm gonna look dumb if I fight something like that. So it's not gonna be me, but one of you brave
so
young
you think
women
that you think that people who are neurologically
I can't see myself prescribing. I can't see myself prescribing this permanent surgical procedure to people.
It's not. First of all, it's not permanent. Don't be a lukewarm fence sitter. Don't stand for nothing and fall for everything.
You think that a vasectomy is made to be reversed, and it's just like something you do temporarily, then you reverse and everything's fine?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they should reverse it. I'm saying that it's reversible.
Yeah, I said it's designed to be permanent. It's designed to be a permanent procedure.
No, it's not.
So you should go into the procedure. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you should go into the procedure assuming that this is non-reversible and that this is permanent. Or am I?
I'm sure going in that way would probably there are some benefits to that, because it's good to kind of plan for the worst, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And if that door closes, like Nini said, the door is closed. If it's closed, it's closed.
So it's like,
but I do not think that these type of men are going to contribute positively, not just to their children or their families or their respective partners. I don't think that they are going to contribute positively to society.
You have an argument. In my mind, you have an argument. I disagree with it, but I don't like the implications of the idea that Just Pearly Things, who I think is doing tremendous harm to both men and women who listen to her, who I think, like you say, subscribe to this delusional mindset and like all this red pill ideology and stuff. The idea of me being like, people like her should get a tubal litigation and not procreate. I can't see myself prescribing this to someone.
Okay, well, my name is Annalicia, and I can see myself right now in real time. I am saying that red pill and man is for bandits. Anyone who really leans into this as not just a worldview, but who are governed by it, whose lives are organized and governed by this cancerous ideology, no, snip, snip, you bastards, snip, snip. And I also believe with Big Burly, first of all, the only listen, the only reason that she's not pregnant is because who would and why would they? That's the real, like, we're gonna be honest. I don't really care. I understand I have like ad hominem Tourette's, but yeah, there's a reason that she's childless and unmarried. There's a reason. I'm sure that on some subconscious level, she probably knows it. So I mean, shout out to her. I hope she doesn't. I don't know. That's my opinion. People say that about me all the time. I don't really care. It's just an opinion. She
Well,
to me is as problematic as Rollo. Do I want their like their, oh my, like, no, I wouldn't. I would not.
well, I disagree. Apparently, nobody else does because nobody hit that link to come up and argue. So I'm going to assume I'm just the odd one out in that everyone else is on accord with you.
So, but why can you give me one reason as to why you think they should have they should be able to have children?
I mean, you can wear protection, you can use spermicide or other forms of birth control. I feel like you don't
No, we're
have
not talking about birth control. We're not talking about them using birth control. We're talking about them procreating and creating life, creating problematic, degenerate, bandit-ridden life.
I mean, I don't think they should, but I'm not going to prescribe a vasectomy or a tubal litigation.
Okay. Well, we can agree to disagree. Bandits are going to bandit. One thing about them, a
welcome.
bandit will find a womb like a crackhead will find a pipe. There's nothing you could do. So, well, there is something you could do. I mean, just like stay away from a bandit, really. Who goes there? And what is your
Wait,
contention?
my bad. Did I say tubal litigation?
You've been
My
saying
bad.
that for a long time. Yeah.
Nancy at Night said, incels are like vultures complaining that their food supplied by bandits isn't fresher, but they won't hunt it for themselves. Agreed. Also, there was someone in the comments, Alpha Omega said that he has some studies he wants to show us, but he has yet to join. So, I mean, I guess those studies will continue to go unread because
those studies are just in their head. It's all in their minds. It's like whenever I hear a bandit cite a study, first of all, you've lost credibility, because if you think that OkCupid is a site-worthy study, if you think it's a study at all, first of all, you lost all credibility. Okay, you've invalidated yourself. You have told on your intellectual incapacity. So yeah, no, I'm not gonna engage with you in a meaningful way.
So regarding, I don't know what he was saying about incels in the comments. It sounds like he's saying they're much safer than Tyrone and Pookie. I don't know what Tyrone is. I don't know what Pookie is.
They're safer than Pookie, the same way a gun is safer than a knife. Like, listen,
I mean, I just think if an incel is safer than someone who you're intimate with, I'm going to assume when it comes to crime, isn't most crime, especially violent crime, committed on like your family, friends, intimate partner? If you don't have friends or intimate partners, which I assume most incels don't have close relationships with their family, friends, or any friends or intimate partners, then obviously you're not going to be in a position to do that usually. But based on what incel forums be talking about regarding mass murder and R-ing people, I don't think giving these people the tool, I assume they're going to be the same or probably worse than the quote unquote Tyrone. But that's just my thoughts. CJ says red pillars externalize and blame and lack the ability to introspect or appreciate nuance. They're not great thinkers and have maladaptive coping skills. Yes, like coming in the comments and writing a bunch of comments to a bunch of studies that I feel like you could just come up and defend yourself. I don't feel like I'm attacking. You can say Annalise is, but I feel like I'm pretty.
I won't listen. I don't have any interest in attacking a bandit. First of all, I just want us to be honest about the conversation that we're having. And what CJ, like, to me, if you're gonna like look at things from a clinical or through a clinical lens, or even like a psychological lens, CJ essentially described a low level narcissistic person. That's what you that's what you're describing. I understand. Oh, it's a buzzword and blah blah blah. Listen, and like cultural narcissism is prevalent and real. It's a problem. So I think that like copying up. Oh, it's a buzzword. Everyone's a narcissist. Not everyone, but people who fit that description, that super chat. That's a narcissist you need to stay away from, because if you're dealing with someone who doesn't have the capacity to introspect, you're dealing with someone who doesn't have empathy. First of all, those two right there, that bandit is liable to do anything that they want to do, and they'll blame Jesus in heaven for it. Your baseline is already starting at the most fundamentally flawed and dysfunctional point. So I'm sorry, stay away from a bandit, period. And an incel is a bandit. They're just a quiet bandit. How about that?
I'm sorry, I don't disagree. The comments are throwing me. Chanel said, "Yeah, bye. I'll trust Deshaun before I trust an incel." Nah, these comments are out of pocket, and y'all are on timeout. They said at least Deshaun got talking skills. He got people skills. Z, you have 2 minutes. What say you on anything we've talked about today?
Hello.
Oh.
I just
How
want
are
to
you?
say you guys look amazing.
Thank you.
So I caught the tail end of the conversation when you guys started talking about the incels and such getting vasectomies, and I want to say that I agree and disagree with that, because I feel like it's unproductive to say that to give them vasectomies. Before we take that route, we definitely have to completely change the system. Like we have to find the root that is causing this narcissism in the men, and it's patriarchy. And patriarchy is ingrained in every major form of media that we consume. From the moment we are born, we are being pushed a heteronormative masculine I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but it's like we're just pushing a masculine-led society, and we would just have to completely rewrite all of that before we even got to rehabilitating people and the snip method. I will say that one thing that I've been noticing is that kids now that are growing up in this generation are consuming more adult content on social media, and it's kind of making them, I don't want to say brain dead, but like we are starting to see like it's only going to get worse, because Fresh and Fit, I don't know how many, I've never been on their channel. I know that they have a lot of subscribers, but you have to think how many of those subscribers are people under the age of 18. Like they're consuming this media, and it's going to completely change their brain before it's even fully developed, and they're going to be set in that belief system no matter what we do. Like it's already a part of them. So I feel like I don't want vasectomy is extreme though, because rehabilitation should definitely come first.
So without the vasectomy, how do you feel about it? Because I actually agree that these types of people probably shouldn't have children. I just don't agree with obviously prescribing
Mandating,
what I
right.
think is a major surgery to them. But like I think some comments are saying it as well. What say you to that's number one, a big ask to change this entire system. And number two, it's not immediate. So
And can I also add something to that? Because earlier we were talking about now they've implemented some type of policy that bans bringing backpacks to school as a way to like mitigate gun violence and bringing and like the ability to bring guns to school. So I would say that North America, particularly America, has a history of not attacking things at the root or the source. So, and I think that socially and culturally speaking, they're not exactly they're not adept with any sort of like holistic intervention. I don't think like because essentially if we're looking at attacking a problem at the root, if we're looking at this problem as a more relational problem and an interpersonal problem and a community or society-based problem, you are going to have to look at it holistically, and you are going to have to get to the root. So I'm based on the fact that historically speaking, that's not really America's style. You know what I'm saying? They have their own style, they do their own thing, and they said don't bring the backpacks to school, and then I say snip snip.
So so starting with the first question of changing the system and them saying it's a big ask, I don't understand why people are not pushing to change the system. I definitely feel like it's because they're afraid to do something different, because we sit here on social media and complain about all of these things that are happening, about kids dying, about women dying. Men are, again, so I don't know the statistics on this. I want to start by saying that. But from what I'm seeing, men are the majority of the people who are committing crimes, who are committing violent crimes. And of course, they're not going to address the root, because in order to address the root, we would have to look at the men and say, okay, you guys are out here, doing all of these things. Why are we allowing you to lead the country if you're the main ones committing crimes? We are allowing people who will never know what it is to be a woman, who will never know the value, I won't say all men, but a lot of men don't understand the true value of a life, because they don't provide life. Like, we create life, they don't do that, so they don't understand the value of a life. So I think that we need to change the system, to be, I don't want to say that it should be more women led, but I definitely feel like women are much more altruistic than men are. I feel like we definitely need to get more women at the top who are going to be able to provide a more compassionate viewpoint on the way that we run this country. Because I've been around groups of men, like I've been, obviously with men, and like hearing some of the things that they talk about and hearing their humor. Like, it's a joke on TikTok that men's humor is actually very disgusting. And I've seen men like laugh at people who are inferior to them, because that's all that the men have. All that they have, because they're disenfranchised by a system that's supposed to privilege them, is to laugh at people who are below them. So yeah, I definitely we should really be changing that. Huh?
See, I love you. I'm only going to disagree with men not understanding the value of life because they don't create it in the same ways that women do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you're alive, I think anybody who is living,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they understand the value. If you can understand the value of your own life, or somebody that you love, someone close to you, if you can understand and conceptualize and resonate with that, I think that you understand generally the value of life. I also agree, studies have shown that women are better leaders. W's for women. So shout out to us, because we've demonstrated our capacity to be better leaders, to be more effective leaders. I also think that, the oppressed punching down on the oppressed. Yeah, I understand that. I don't think that that's what all people, I don't think that's what all people do. I think that a lot of women that I know who have been oppressed or been in situations where they've been subjugated or abused, a lot of the time if they come out of it, a lot of the time they're looking to give back, and they're looking to they're looking to create some type of structure, or at least engage in some type of structure or scaffolding that helps other people who have been disenfranchised. I think men in particular, because of their nature, that's right, I said it, the male nature is predatory and degenerate. That's right.
Yeah.
But because of that, I think that they probably have a higher propensity to like punch down.
Yeah.
And because of that, like unironically, they're not good leaders. But I also think that just because you ain't shit, you haven't had shit, you don't think you're ever going to be shit, doesn't mean that you can go around running around like an emotional terrorist, because you feel bad about yourself, and you feel that there's someone that you lie higher up on a hierarchy than someone else, and therefore that gives you the carte blanche to say and do whatever the hell you want. I don't think so. I agree with mostly everything that you said, except for the whole understanding the value of life. I think that women are better leaders. I think that men as a species or class or group of people, I think that they're inferior.
But so I'm going to push this, and the reason why I'm going to push this is I have two main points. The first
Make
point,
sure that you are, sorry to interrupt, make sure that you are brief with those points and that we're
Oh,
being
yeah.
respectful of everyone who called in time.
Oh yes, okay. My first point is men's solution to a problem is war. Like in their mind, the amount of human lives lost in a war is worth whatever we're fighting over. Like it can be a very petty thing. There have been wars over the pettiest things, and they have just completely ruined, like we've seen in history, they have gone to other countries and just decimated a whole culture of people. I don't think that you understand the value of a life if you believe that taking a life is the solution to the problem. And I've had a personal experience where I was with a group of men and we were talking about taking a life. And, they were all in agreement that they would be able to take a life. And me and a female friend of mine were there, and we were saying that we don't agree with that. And the reason why I personally didn't agree with that is because I feel like in order to take a life, you have to be willing to lose yours. Once you take a life, you've lost a part of your humanity. Essentially, you've lost a part of your life. And my female friend agreed, but my male friends were like, oh, yeah, like that's a risk I'm willing to take. So if you're willing to say, like, you can't understand the value of a life if you're willing to lose your life and risk your life to take someone else's, and you're rationalizing that in your mind.
Isn't that dependent on context though? If someone's threatening my family, for example, and
Oh,
I
of course.
yeah.
No, but Z, but also, but if that's the case, if they don't understand the value of life, why should they have the ability to create it or to help in the creation of it?
Yeah.
That doesn't that mean that we should be giving vasectomies Oprah style? You get a vasectomy, you bandit, you don't understand the value of life, you get a vasectomy. I think that sort of bolsters my argument a little bit. Like, let's say that I do agree with you and that they don't understand the value of life. Let's say that men at their most primitive and base, I guess, their primitive self, which it's true. Men have testosterone. Men are more predisposed to engaging in violence, to physically externalizing their emotions. Like, there's a lot of problems with these XY guys. But at the end of the day, that would bolster my argument in the end, and it would also lend maybe to the idea that men, part of the reason that patriarchy is not going to go anywhere, frankly, is because it allows men to still engage in their most primitive, primal, dangerous, and predatory fundamental proclivities. Like, it allows them to do that in many cases with impunity. So I get a vasectomy.
And this is my last point, and then I'm going to go ahead. If that's what we're saying, like if we're having this conversation, in my opinion, if we're going down this route, a vasectomy isn't enough. And the reason why I say a vasectomy isn't enough is because the ability to procreate is not going to stop a man from taking a woman. Like, whether or not men, yes, their purpose is to procreate, but when they do what they do, they're not, in their mind, they're not thinking, oh, I'm having sex because a child will come. Like, they're not thinking that far. They're thinking, oh, like that, like I'm just going to have sex because it feels good. And I'm gonna slide this in there and then I'm gonna go. So a male phallus is called or considered like a external female clitoris. And I just find it interesting that men and women are so diametrically opposed. Like a phallus is a uterus, and all of our systems turned inside out. So I feel like the masculine is kind of a more, I don't want to say negative, because I definitely feel like there are net positive, but it's kind of like all of the good in a woman essentially was reversed. Like, it's a weird, like, it's not like it's just a theory, I'm not. That's a little something else.
No, that last part I agree with. It's the patriarchy has sort of bastardized masculinity.
Yeah.
So that and it's like repackaged it, it's rebranded it over the course of time so that it looks completely different from the energy that it actually it actually is supposed to like it's an energy, right? So I think it's been bastardized by men because men get to decide what's masculine, what's feminine, what's who's strong, who's weak, blah blah blah. But yeah, I agree with that. Thank you, Z.
Of course. Have a good one. I'll be the rest of the live.
Thank you, Snip Snip.
Thank you for joining. Oop. Concern.
So I had something else to say, but one of the things that I have from that conversation, which was very good, I'd like to add to that. Then, if women have been raised in the same environments and have been interacting with men this whole time, along that, responding to that patriarchy that is so admittedly toxic and kind of creating a reaction in femininity. We're even making up roles now based off of something that I don't believe is inherent or biological. So it's not necessarily a defense for petty. It's I think that we have to also name that we don't know what masculinity is at this stage because it's spent so much time telling us a story that I don't think we could honestly get to a point where we're able to identify that without the stories that patriarchy told us. Like, it's our worldview. Like, I don't know if we could have a fair and if women can know what masculinity is. And I don't know, as a woman, if I could really name a universal femininity. It feels so, I am female. Like, anything I say that's a marker for femininity ultimately could seem alienating. Femininity is soft. What about the women that are hard? Are they less women? Like, I think the roles are inherently toxic. And so, in a lot of ways, the vasectomy, we would have to basically agree to reset because women have also been poisoned by this thing in a way that's shaping our reality as well.
But concerned, if you say that we have to reset, right? You think that men and women. So when I think of resetting, if men were to reset, we're talking about like Neanderthals coming back. We're talking about like I think the inception and the advent of legislation and laws and things like that is because like men just couldn't stop being cavemen and Neanderthals and killing and murdering and R-ing and doing all these things. So someone's like, all right, like this is like kind of out of control at this point. We have to do something about it. So for men at their base level, in their natural state are predators. I think that women, because we've been superimposed into positions that sometimes are unnatural because we're living in in a socially constructed world and an environment that's been engineered unnaturally. I think that it's counterintuitive to our natural state, our natural being. And I'm not into like this rigid defining of like masculinity and femininity. I think that's the beauty of women and female. The beauty is the differences that encapsulate femininity, female, women, beauty. It's the differences that sort of that amalgamate and work together. So I think women in our natural state, I think we like women, we are resourceful. We're always going to find a way to do our thing, especially if we're able to operate in our natural state, because naturally we are empathic. Some of these things are inherent, I believe, to some degree. But on the other end, for men are going to be out there like it's going to be New Jack City.
So really, I wanted to really quickly respond to a comment that came up. Men can live without women, whereas women can't live without men. You need men for survival purposes. I don't understand what this means because I think you need both men and women for like the next generation of children to exist. So unless you're describing it as anything outside of procreating, in which case men can survive without women, but also women can survive without men. So
Actually,
But
Bandit,
then
not you,
also,
Petty. I love you. But actually, women, first of all, men are a mutation of women's creation. Okay? Women said, you know what? We want to switch it up. Women said we want, we want to switch it up. We want more variation in our genetic makeup. And women decided that, you know, maybe you'll help us. Maybe you'll be a help in the end. At the end of the day, you weren't. You're pretty useless, and that's why we were good leaders. But if you're a mutation of us, that would mean that we wouldn't actually need you to survive. Evolution would do its thing.
I don't think evolution is going within this generation of women. If all men disappeared, I don't think y'all gonna learn how to do the bone marrow pregnancy thing before everybody dies out. In my opinion.
Actually, evolutionarily speaking, the only reason that women are not able to spontaneously procreate anymore, or what is it called again?
immaculate conception.
No, Mother Mary.
The traveling pants.
Listen, cut the shit. It's called somebody in the chat, please help me. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's called
I know that like there's like a fish that does it, but I don't know what you're talking about. Like the word.
Parthogenesis. The only reason, evolutionarily speaking, that women are not able to pin it, motherfucker. The only reason is because the introduction of sperm is what literally impedes women's ability to do what we used to do. But I would say evolution. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I think that if you're a mutation of women, I think that evolutionarily speaking, I think that would mean that women at some point would be able to continue on without men, but never the other way around. Let's be honest, because you need women in every way. Okay, you want to exist, you need a woman. But I think over a course of time, I don't know.
I feel like a lot of times men die earlier when their wife dies than when the husband dies on a wife. Like the men will die within a few years, and then the wife can like live on for like 20-30 years after her husband died, just because she kind of was the person making sure that like existing was doable. But I will say that, okay, then if women are immaculate in God, can we at least admit that we messed up? Because it seems like we're pretty far down to the end of this experiment where we externalized our sexual opposite so that we can procreate. I don't know. I mean, I think that at some point we have to learn how to live with our science experiment and just move on with now them integrating, because we can't take it back.
No,
we can't take it back.
Concern, I promise you, if you look in history, women have tried to work with men. I think men realize, when you're dealing with like a really if you have a really abusive friend or boyfriend or whatever, and they know, and part of the reasons that they're abusive or that they're toxic is because they have really like low self-esteem and a lot of insecurities. So in order to compensate for that, they'll put you down, they'll punch down on you, they'll try to isolate you. I think men realize that, like, okay, we're mutations of you guys. We're not, we're not as smart. In every measure, in every stage of life, women fare better than men on every measure, and that's statistically true. That's scientifically, psychologically true. I think men at some point in history realized that, and they impose their physical will on women, and it was kind of a wrap after that. I think that in order for men to get ahead, they needed like a wheelchair ramp, a proverbial wheelchair ramp. So they kind of had to like switch the roles of men and women. So men are like, listen, they're better, they're obviously like better than us. We're like, like
But they
we're
get
like
us to buy it
we're
though, Annalicia. Like a lot of women truly feel like men are better than them.
yeah,
And
but
we have been,
that's patriarchy, right? Like
I
women are
understand that, but our lab experiment has taken over the lab. So we
take
have to understand that
take
men
accountability.
have to coexist. Like, and what I'm trying to say is that, to Petty's point, we don't have a plan for what to do if we don't have sperm. We don't have a plan. We don't have an idea of what's going to happen if we have the women entirely unencumbered by men and able to focus on figuring out how to reverse this shit. Like, I don't know if we have enough generations to figure it out. And I would also
Listen,
say, wait, let
be
me finish my
accountable,
thought.
concerned. Be accountable. Black, all the women in here, be accountable
But
for
here's what I'm saying. Like, we are all accountable internally for sure, but we hold with patriarchy in a lot of ways too. And I'm not saying that we should feel bad about it or whatever. Yes, we should feel bad. What I am saying, we should feel bad about it. Like, in order for us to start saying that somebody should be deleted, I feel like we have to be honest about what we are naming is the problem in the problematic, and look
I'm
in
saying
the
that the
mirror and
problem
see if it's in us too.
so you're saying that the problem is environmental. You think that the patriarchy is what's creating these deficits in men, and I'm telling you these deficits in men already existed before the patriarchy, and because they existed, they created the patriarchy. So that's a different relationship. I think that the problem is innate, and if they're not governed by some body, by some power, they will run rampant for the most part. But I'm saying it's not a chicken, it's not what came first, the chicken or the egg. I'm saying that because men understand their nature, their fundamental nature, and predispositions and proclivities, they created a structure so that they can engage in those impulses with impunity, and so that they can have power to continue to engage in it. That's what I'm saying. So I don't think it's just environmental. I think that some men need a snip snip, like a procedure. It's like a woman going in.
Like,
You know what I'm saying? Like snip snip.
a snip snip. Nick Cannon needs a snip snip. I don't think we should just. I think that those are outliers. I don't know how many outliers we really have. Even though you average low numbers, you get a low average. You average high numbers, you get a high average. You know, saying that the average man is X, Y, or Z doesn't decide anything about who those men are, right? But
And
it's
just for the remedial, for the inferiors, for our creations in the chat copying a plea and crying. I just want to be clear, we're not calling for the deletion of men. We're calling for men to not create. We're calling for men to get a simple procedure, a snippety snip snip, call it a day, call it a life, and try to be productive. And that's that. We're not saying, hey, like let's kill all men. That's a different kind of problem, and I don't think that's. I'm not going to engage with that. But what I am saying is, some of these males are males and not men, and therefore they need a snip snip.
So what say you? I'll ask this question and then I'll let Paris go, since she's been trying to speak for a while.
I'm sorry, Paris.
Yeah, I keep getting kicked off.
Well, it's not me. I'm not touching anything.
Oh no, it's on my end. It's on my end.
What say you to? I think Themis was referencing a study that showed that it doesn't necessarily. Even if these men aren't having children, they're still in the community and they're still able to influence even the children from the quote unquote good men who don't subscribe to these types of ideology or have these types of deficiencies. Especially in the Black community, what will this really make a impact if these men aren't having children? Won't they still have a reach to all the other children in the
Listen,
community?
I'm sorry to tell you, I know that Black men in particular, and this is the narcissism, Black men think that they're gods. You understand?
No,
Black men
not
think they're
that
gods. They think they're gonna hold on. They think they're gonna live forever. But at the end of the day, they have an expiration date, and it seems to be earlier than other men comparatively. So I think over a period of time, without spreading their defective gene pool, we could probably get somewhere. Probably most likely we could get somewhere. You have an expiration date. You have a bad ticker. You're
we would be
probably
having
obese.
we would be
Sick,
having
look
less
at Kevin Samuels.
we
Okay,
would
Kevin
be
Samuels
having
had money and he
we would
croaked.
we would be having less children, but those men, even with vasectomy, would still exist, and men would still be born to other. If you're if you're prescribing vasectomies to all men, then everyone will die out, obviously. Well, after the sperm bank run out. But if you're prescribing vasectomies to men who subscribe to this toxic type of ideology, those men will still subscribe to that toxic ideology, and they will still influence other children, other male
Right,
children
but that's
in the
not my,
community.
but you're, and that's not the issue. These problematic and defective males are going to be defective. They're going to be problematic. And like Z said, unless we're going to remedy the issue at the fundamental root cause, throw them away, it's a wrap for them at the end of the day. I'm saying for future, and this is the problem, the Black community lacks foresight. Sorry, I'm saying for future generations, you have to cut it at the root. And the root seems to be these defective
Again,
genes.
I'm going to ask my question again. I believe Themis referenced some literature that says it's not necessarily that the male directly over you, right? Even a Black boy in a 2-parent household will generally go out and get his influence from the men in the community. So it doesn't even matter if he has a good 2-parent household, he might still grow up to be, quote unquote, the same Black man, right? If these men get vasectomies and stop having children, Black boys will still continue to exist unless everybody all boys. I don't know if you're talking about all races or just the Black community, but these people, they'll still exist in the community and they'll still be influencing the boys. It's not that they have children that makes them toxic or able to influence the community negatively.
Right. So what do you think is worse? Do you think it's worse to raise children in a community that is governed by cancerous red pill ideology?
It's going to be governed. Okay, go ahead. My bad.
No, it's so the reason that I'm thinking like generations from now, like maybe even millennia from now. I'm not thinking like one generation or two, one decade or two. Let's be honest. In order for us to sustain a society, we only need a few really good men with immaculate genetic variation to continue populating the earth. We're gonna be honest.
What I'm saying
we don't need a surplus of males. And I understand what you're saying. You're saying they're gonna continue to exist anyway, so it's not gonna make a difference.
They're going to continue to exist. They're going to continue to, even if you say we only need a few good men to have children, those good men are going to have children who go out and they're influenced by those men with vasectomies who still exist.
But that's what I'm saying. By the time those children are socialized, reared, by the time they are culturally influenced, the culture will have been revitalized by the I guess it would be a more matriarchal rooted or tethered system. They would be subscribing to, and they would be socialized in a different environment.
That would be the same environment they're in now, right?
No, if it was the same environment, then
correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, generally, Black boys, for example, are growing up in single mother households. Even when they grow up in a household with both a mother and a father that presumably are not abusive or anything like that, those boys who you would expect to fare normally will still go out in the community and be influenced by whatever degeneracy is outside of the home more than they'll be influenced by whatever is in the home. So even if only the good men are having children, those children in the good homes will still go outside and be influenced by the community.
Right.
So the problem to me will still exist. Now you can argue that we'll have less children overall, and that might be a benefit to the Black community. I don't know if I agree or disagree, but we would still have the same rhetoric from the men giving it to the next generation of I
agree with you. We would still have that pool of men. But again, this is these are changes that would be made incrementally over the course of like a millennium. Do you get what I'm saying? I understand what you're saying, but in order to revitalize the culture, in order to change the cultural dynamic and familial dynamic, it's going to take time. It takes generations to do that, right?
Well,
So
the comments they're saying they're getting you, so this might be a me issue. I'm going to think on that while we let Deadbeat Auntie, if you wanted to respond to anything that's been said so far. All right, she left. And then I think Z said she had something else to say. Before you do that, actually, let me read the super chat. Oh, Deadbeat Auntie's back. Before Deadbeat Auntie, let me read the super chats real quick. Incels are like cowards who see themselves as safe, but they're insidiously dangerous opportunists. Yes, I agree. They are the quote unquote nice guy. This is actually really interesting because my one of my women friends sent a screenshot. Well, she posted it on her story, but it's some man, and she was like, I prefer to. She asked him why he had no social media because she sees that as a red flag. She prefers someone with social media so that she just don't like a man who's not trackable, which I think I understand. Someone who has no online presence whatsoever. And she just said she prefers someone who has that. He was like, cool. 3 hours later, after she didn't text back, he was like, you lost out on a good man, you dumb B word, and you're shallow AF. And like he instantly switched up. So I believe that these incels are only the good man until you don't agree with them or you don't want them or whatever happen.
That's that's the problem with incel. Like that's the problem with these type of males, these type of people in general. Like they truly do have a warped way of seeing themselves in the world, which is mashup. Like that to me blows my mind. But they are also it's also dangerous. It's also very scary because just like I actually know someone this happened to, where I'm short circuiting. We'll go to somebody else. I'm sorry.
Love Latoya says, thank you for the super chat, by the way. That's because they don't exist. He's like Santa Claus. I think this was in reference to High Value Man. Apparently they are Santa Claus. They might as well be non-existent. I agree. Love Latoya.
It is not. Sorry, CJ said it's narcissism. It 100% is narcissism. Like they'll like do a song and a dance for you, but the minute that you do something that they don't like or that they disagree with, they're gonna unload the clip on you. Sometimes a real clip, other times they'll stalk you. Like incels are there's something like yo, listen, man. Listen.
Love Latoya says the High Value Man is like the Loch Ness Monster, Yeti, UFOs, aliens, Tupac still being alive. They don't exist. Agreed on everything, but I do know that Tupac is out there somewhere, and y'all not gonna convince me otherwise. Thank you for the super chat. Z Star says no one's saying women are perfect, but we have a higher propensity for empathy and leadership. Everything that we are speaking is scientifically backed. We are all on one accord. Thank you.
Wait, so you think that you were on one accord? So you think that men are inferior in some ways to women?
I don't think men are inferior off of the basis of being men. I think men are socialized to have less empathy, like she says, less empathy and less. I think that's important for leadership. For example, let me pull her comment back up.
But do you think that?
I agree with her when she says women have a higher propensity for empathy and leadership.
Yeah, but do you think that testosterone has anything to do with men's capacity for empathy?
Probably, but I believe that social conditioning trumps that.
You think that environment trumps? Okay, yeah. I'm not going to disagree because I've read the literature. That's fair. But if you think if you believe that, then you have to, like, conversely, men are also socialized to temper their violent proclivities and predatory predispositions, right? So
you're gonna have to use smaller words, ma'am.
You know what I'm saying? Men are if men are socialized to be less empathic than women, but they're also socialized to be less predatory than their caveman ancestors, or that now that they're governed by something or someone.
I mean, we do live in an art culture,
Wouldn't
so
that still speak to a biological difference that's problematic?
I mean, you can say that. I'm still going to say social conditioning is going to trump anything biological generally.
Right, and I'm saying biologically, if men are predators, who are governed by their predation, does that not make them
I
more
don't. Well,
inferior?
here's the thing. I don't generally care about a biological rule. You can say women are biologically, they're
I
just
don't care if you
biological
care. You're
caretakers,
not.
and men are just biological leaders. And you can say that. Sure, I don't really care. What I care more about is a social conditioning, as
Okay, so
far as how
you're
people
going
show up
to.
in society.
So you're just going to negate science then?
I'm not going to negate science. I'm going to say social conditioning generally matters more than the biological aspect.
Right, but there's interplay. You interact with your environment, and your environment interacts with your genetic makeup. But at the same time, if you take social engineering away, if you take socialization away, fundamentally, because of the hormones that men produce, the surplus of some hormones that men produce, whereas women do not, that still would it would still bolster the argument that because they're governed by these hormones, that's a deficiency, that's an
I mean,
inferiority in
can't we?
some way.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but you can use this argument, I feel like, in any negative aspect. Can't we say for the wage gap, for example? I think a lot of people believe, oh, women just choose jobs that pay less. Women are just scared to argue for a raise. Women are just blah, 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 blah. I would argue that no, women aren't scared to argue for a raise, but when they argue for it, they're seen as more bitchy or rude, as opposed to a man arguing for it being more confident or something like that. So even though there might be some biological differences between men and women, I generally think it's going to be the social conditioning that's actually causing the problems in society more than the biology is.
All right, well, that was first of all, that was how can I say this without being rude? That was a false that's a false dichotomy, because again, you're focusing on socialization, and I'm asking you about men's biological makeup. And again, you're still referencing the socialization of women and their engagement in the workforce and blah, 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 blah. But I'm still saying, at the end of the day, biologically, fundamentally, men being governed by their hormones, if we are going to omit the socialization, at the core of it, you leave men to their own devices. They're governed by their predation. And if you're governed by your predation, I'm not sure, how successful a society can be, which is why, again, the advent of legislation, the advent of laws needing to be created to govern these violent maniacs, first of all. But again, I don't know how successful you would be. I don't know how far you would get. And I don't know how I would say neurologically, I don't know how much room that leaves in the brain for like higher thinking. It's very primitive, very primitive, right? And from that perspective, to me, we're all animals, but if you can only operate as an animal, and you don't have the capacity to govern your animal impulses, you're inferior, and that's an advantage that women have over men. So
I mean, yeah, if we get like knocked back to the Stone Age and have no government, no rules, no society anymore, then yeah. Otherwise, I'm living in a world where we're generally going to be affected by social conditioning more than our biology.
Okay. I mean, they're inferior, but we can go on. Okay, let's go on.
So the rest of the super chats. Thank you, Z Star, by the way. DIY with Paris says, rehabilitation sounds like thoughts and prayers when it comes to gun violence. Get rid of the gun, males. I think that was in response to Z, but she's not up anymore. But thank you for the super chat. I'll bring it back up if she comes up and wants to address it. Oh wait, Z's here. Hello, Z. If you wanted to address that, you can.
So I want to say that I get where you're coming from, but look at prisoners. Like, there are prisoners who commit crimes, go to prison, and if we're actually properly doing what the prison system is there for, we are working to rehabilitate them psychologically. The rehabilitation, like if we're already in a society that is assisting men in their degeneracy, of course, like we would have to. Rehabilitation doesn't start with the men who have already succumbed to the society. Rehabilitation starts with the children. It starts with the new, fresh minds that are coming in. That's what I meant by rehabilitation. I definitely think that we should at least try, because we all started with patriarchy, right? So it's like if we all started with that mindset, Themis's channel, I'm just going to use this, is like rehabilitation, gaining knowledge and gaining the ability to think and act on the knowledge. Like, that is rehabilitation. And I see men in here who are agreeing and who are saying, like, even though it's a small percentage, they exist. So I feel like first, before we take the extreme route, we have to start with the mind. And then those who don't want to participate in that society, I won't say that we should just kill them off, but we should just let them go somewhere else. We should let them go find a place where degeneracy can occur. I don't believe in taking a life, so they can just go somewhere else with the degeneracy. That's my thoughts on it.
Because I don't ever believe in taking a life. I'm not an eye for an eye type of a person. I'm just saying that some people should not be peopling. No, actually, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that some males should not have the privilege to spread their degenerate and debaucherous bodily fluids into the community. Sorry, that's what I'm saying. That's how I feel. And it's not, I don't think that, I'm not saying, oh, go out there and pew, pew, pew. Every bandit that you see, another bandit's going to do that anyways. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is part of the problem is genetics. Because I'm sorry, some things run in the family, including banditry. It's not clinically observable. It's not a clinical diagnosis, but there are some problems that need to be cut at the root. Sorry. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying, I mean, there are some who are willing to do the work. There are some who are willing to participate meaningfully in society. There are some who have empathy. There are some who are kind, who are good, who are productive. And those are the ones that obviously, would make for a good parent, leader, builder, provider, guider, whatever. But it's the bandits who are sitting at home. She blew me off. She didn't return my text. I saw her on Instagram. I saw her Instagram story. Ooh, she just wants Chad. She only wants Chad. And then they go call and buying it up or some shit. Like, yeah, they should probably snip, snip.
Well, that was a good crackhead impersonation if I ever saw one. I'd like to go in order from Rochelle, Apple, then Z. If you had any final thoughts, you can say them after them. Rochelle.
Hello.
Hi, B.
Hi. So I just wanted to comment on the sterilization part. I personally don't think many men will go for it. I don't think many men will want to willingly do that. But I think it ultimately lies with like women kind of just, holding back from like intimacy with those kinds of men, because many of those kinds of men won't get like sterilized anyway. So I feel like it will just ultimately fall on women to just withhold like intimacy.
And you have to treat your womb like it's Fort Knox. Nothing goes in and nothing comes out. You understand? Your womb is Rikers Island. You know what I'm saying? Bandits Okay, not Rikers Island. Bandits and Rikers Island are like peanut butter and jelly. But your womb is like Fort Knox, okay? Nothing can go in,
Right.
nothing can come out. You have to obviously like stay away from bandits.
Yeah.
But ultimately, especially for Black men, and people are talking about sterilization. This is a minimally invasive procedure that is reversible, and this is why bandits need it, because they don't even know that. They don't know anything about that. They don't know anything about it. They're sitting running. How are you going to call it sterilization, sir? What does it mean to be sterilized? Does anybody know the definition? Least of all, a bandit. What's wrong with you? We're talking about a procedure that is reversible. Can there be complications? Of course. I mean, anything's possible, right? We're talking about we're talking about the medical field here, but at the end of the day, it's still reversible. There are things that you can do. So I mean, the position still stands. Snip, 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 snip.
Hey,
Right.
sorry. I just wanted to add a quick point to Petty because I remember you were saying something about vasectomies being permanent. I wanted to caveat about birth control for women and abortions. Birth control and abortions are two very permanent things that they use in order to prevent child rearing for women. Once you start birth control, as somebody who's been on birth control, your body is never the same. Once you get an abortion, your body is never the same. I feel like if we're saying that it's okay to change a woman's body, why is it not okay to do the same for men?
When I'm thinking about
She said
the
easy
permanent
word,
when I'm
bandit.
thinking about the permanent change, what I'm thinking about is the ability to have children. So not necessarily the side effects that might come from a vasectomy outside of that. At least when you get off of birth control or reverse the vasectomy, which again, I'm generally going to think of this and I think everyone should think of it as a permanent procedure and go into it thinking of it as a permanent procedure and not just, oh, I'm gonna get a vasectomy for 3 or 7 years or however long, become a high value man and then undo it or whatever Rollo was talking about.
Yeah, but you
Listen,
could say,
yeah.
You could say the
No, go
same
ahead.
thing about, again, birth control and abortions, because one of the side effects for starting those treatments is that you will not be able to have children potentially in the future, because it changes the hormones in your body, it changes your uterus, like those things, those chemicals, those hormones, like these are things that they tell you when you're getting these treatments. They tell you, hey, if you start this treatment, there's a possibility that you won't be able to have kids again, that this is something that will be irreversible. And like I said, the side effects of birth control and abortion are irreversible. Once you start those, your body will never be the same again. So I feel like I definitely understand what you're saying with the vasectomy, but we would have to start looking at statistics for the rate, like for the symptoms, side effects, and such of vasectomies before we can start having this conversation. Because we have all of the information for the things that the women are doing because they're doing them at much higher rates.
Yeah, what I think I'd look at is what the rates are for certain types of birth control as far as how long the woman is using them, and whether or not using them for a longer time has a effect on whether or not the woman will become infertile, what is the rate of infertility, which probably it will be affected by how long they're being used, and then probably compare that to vasectomies in the same way.
So Petty, sometimes it's not infertility. Quite exactly. Sometimes it is like sometimes you have the ability to get pregnant down the line, but you are at higher risk for possibly a higher risk for birth abnormalities, or abnormalities like physical abnormalities. Also, like the rates of miscarrying would increase. Like there are, so it's
So you guys,
it's not, it doesn't have to always be an extreme, is what I'm saying.
So for you guys, regular birth control, as far as like spermicide, the pill shot, I think there's a implant, other
Yeah,
all of this you guys would consider kind of on the same level as like a tubal ligation.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
As far as reversibility and infertility, risk after.
I would consider them parallel in terms of the risks associated with them long term.
Okay, I mean, I disagree, but I can look up the research sometime.
That's okay. Listen, I think I need to actually do the homework with about this as well. But one of the bandits in the chat said that, Petty, can't you see? They want to continue sleeping with Pookie. That's why they want him to have vasectomies. Like, that's a cope. Go touch grass. Go outside.
No.
Stop coping.
Recall.
Nobody wants Pookie.
Recall.
Okay, maybe I think that I think, you know what I think? I think men want Pookie. Like, men want to be like Pookie. Men want to, like, get in the bed with Pookie when he's, like, with Megan Good or, like another bad bee. Honestly, like, I think men want Pookie more than women want Pookie. I'm sorry. Like, that to me is obvious. Like, look at Kevin Samuels. Really?
And recall that Rollo gave the advice in the first place to men in their 20s, and Fresh and Fit echoed this because these men have no sexual discipline and they can't control what's in their pants. So it doesn't feel like the women are, well, y'all are prescribing vasectomies for other reasons, not for sex, but for men not creating
Listen, I'm
not
sorry.
creating the same they are. But the whole reason vasectomy was brought up in the first place is because Rollo and Fresh and Fit says men can't control themselves. So I don't understand the comment you're responding to. I would say he's incorrect.
But Petty, I want to the thing, like, women have been beholden to men's. Oh crap! Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. You're Borging. Well, while you Borg, a super chat. Nancy at Night says part of the banditry is passing all the risks to women, and ironically, those risks that could be shouldered by men.
Well, on the part of the birth control for women, I think many women probably should only take, like, the hormonal birth control if they're having very painful or very, like, debilitating periods, or if they. And I've also heard of some women getting prescribed the hormonal birth control if they have like severe forms of acne. But I don't think in terms of like being 16 and getting on birth control, I don't think that would be the best idea, since you're so young and your body is changing so much. And I think even long term, they gynecologists said that, like, it takes a few years for your body to regulate itself once you're off hormonal birth control. So I think the implications are just very severe, and I think should be thought about carefully.
Well, I wasn't prescribing vasectomy or tubal ligation or birth control to anyone.
Well, I will say that women's reproductive agency and their reproductive lives they've been governed by men and beholden to men and men's ideas. So I mean, listen, a little snippy snip 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 isn't going to kill anybody. I mean, like, listen, one thing about the body and one thing about the world, the environment, the universe, it demands homeostasis. It needs balance. Part of the reason that women's bodies go through so much change when they do come off of hormonal birth control is because the body is getting back to homeostasis. It's getting back to baseline. It's getting back to balance. And I think some of these bandits, whether it be a Pookie or an incel who's, like, obsessed with Chad and Chins, and Stacy, like, I'm sorry, we need to cut it. We need to cut it.
So the people in the comments are saying that y'all are spreading false info, or I'm not sure if that was directed to me. Does anyone here have a background in the medical field or health?
No, so I will say that that there are some risks. There are risks associated with long-term birth control, but I will say that, generally speaking, based on the literature that I have been privy to, I will say that over time. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I will say that over time, typically, unless you have, like, unless you have a sort of comorbid underlying health problem, you typically women will go back to homeostasis and the changes typically they're not typically permanent, but also vasectomies are not typically permanent either. So
I don't have a background in medical, but I will note from personal anecdotal experience, when you go to your gynecologist to get put on hormonal birth control, one of the things that they tell you is that if you start this birth control, there will be side effects. Like no one is able to escape the side effects of birth control, and they tell you the worst obviously when you're there, but they tell you before you even get it that it's going to permanently alter your body. That's something that they tell you in office.
Yeah, like I think in life, I think everything in life is associated with some degree of risk, and it's like kind of like the cost to reward that you have to you kind of have to, I guess, analyze what you stand to gain in any particular situation with any particular risk. But I think if we're looking to mitigate risk of procreating more unstable bandits who are like locked up in their mom's basement, plotting the next mass shooting, I think that again, snip. So
Again, you keep saying this will prevent. You can say that you're passing the genes off, but the research seemed to indicate that it doesn't matter if you have a good or bad parent. At least as a boy, the community around you is going to be more important. And unless all those men who are getting vasectomies leave the community and go to the moon base or wherever y'all said y'all would send them, I believe you're still going to have the same issues. But I'm not going to speak anymore on vasectomies or birth control because I don't have the medical expertise to provide y'all with information about that, and I have not heard a single citation, so I'm going to disregard any and everything that y'all said, and we're going to go to Apple, who has been waiting to speak, and then we can do a quick wrap up with 30 seconds from everyone, and then we can do a short after show.
I don't know what the misinformation is. Sorry, Apple.
Apple is asleep. The deadbeat auntie, I think you wanted to speak earlier.
Hello.
Howdy. Oh, before you do, actually, I forgot we had a super chat. Lovely, Love Latoya said, "Can't they tie their two with some type of tourniquet that can be less permanent instead of snipping it?" I'm not sure regarding how a tubal. I said litigation again, I think, but I'm not sure how tubal ligation works. So I don't know if it's snipped. I believe it is snipped and cauterized, but I don't know for sure without looking it up. So yeah. Apple.
Oh, was that for me?
No, I was just reading the super chat, but you can speak on anything that we've talked about today. I also do want to inform people I am a janitor too at a medical facility. So technically, I am more medically qualified than anyone here because we have to HIPAA train. So, period. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hello. Yeah. Well, I do have a bachelor's in sociology with a minor in public health. So, I guess I can speak a little bit to what Anna was saying earlier. Oh shit, it's an echo because now I'm in the car. Is there an echo?
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard an echo. But what I was saying about, or what I heard Annalicia saying earlier was that men are a mutation, because if you really think about the chicken and the egg argument, like which came first, even if you can make the argument, it doesn't matter if it was the chicken or the egg, whatever came out of the egg had to be female because you have to produce another egg. So if it was the egg that came first, whatever comes out the egg is female, and then if it was the chicken that came first, the chicken has to be female. because it has to produce another egg. So pretty much men come from us. And I was saying in the chat earlier that, there are mutations because childbearing and child rearing is hard. And, you got to have a little fun. You got to, something hard is coming out. You got to have something nice and hard going in, if you know what I mean.
Oh
We're gonna
God,
keep this show
I do, and
PG.
I wish that I didn't. But like I said, we all start out female in the womb, and then somewhere along the line, we just went wrong.
Yeah.
And
well, because the thing about
I'm not a black man, and because you're not a black man, we can be accountable. We can sit here and say, I don't know if anybody has seen Arrested Development. In Michael Bluth, when the Bluth family, when they say, I think I've made a huge mistake. And I think that's where we are. It's like, you have to really pause. I think I've made a huge mistake. And that's where we are. And because we're not black men, we can admit it. And that's what it is. So, agreed.
Yeah, and the thing about mutations is that you can't control the mutation like it's a mutation. Like, so whatever happens. Like, it could be something beneficial or it could be something detrimental. And unfortunately, there's been some benefits and a lot of, not so good things, a lot of detriments. One being that they are the number one opt to our existence, our being, and that's pretty much across every species almost on the planet. Like, they always have to worry about the males of their species coming and taking them out, even if it's accidentally or on purpose.
Y'all said it's called the what? The R mutation?
Yeah, it's a mutation.
What's the name
I'm sorry,
of the mutation?
I'm accountable. You know what I'm saying? You guys mutated, and you mutated wrong. So technically, we still have the power. But I think now the way that we utilize the power is by, again, the womb is Fort Knox. So you don't pass the birthing canal, and then we try to mitigate the risks of you bandits in your mom's basement complaining about Chad and Brad and Stacy and Chins and Keisha and Pookie and Ray Ray and Whitey and the government and birth control and feminism and weave, and the list goes on. So again, snip, snip, motherfucker, snip, snip.
What's the name of the mutation?
Banditritis.
How do you spell that?
Banditritis.
Yeah.
Banditritis. Banditritis. Banditritis subcolopagus.
Well, I have no clue what scientific literature exists regarding that mutation, because I'm not a scientist and I don't study anything like that outside in my civilian life. So I'm just going to have to do research on the banditritis mutation. But I will definitely
take my word for it. I wouldn't lead you astray. You know me.
But I will definitely use that as an insult towards any men who I'm arguing with. I'm just gonna say you're just an R mutation. Don't talk to me like that. I will do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, is it technically wrong? I mean, if Crypt Keeper can say that giving advice is by definition, he's like, I mean, if people can just say anything they want to say, I'm not wrong, am I? No.
No, I don't know. I would have to do research.
I mean,
my understanding is that during early development, as far as your physical sex at least, it kind of remains undifferentiated. So
wait, early development in the womb?
In the womb, yeah. I'm gonna say before 6 weeks of gestation, and then on the 6th or 7th week, that's when the Y or the X or the Y chromosome is expressed. But my knowledge, as far as I don't have like a deep scientific knowledge of how the male mutation occurs, or if it exists. I don't know if y'all lying to me. So yeah, I'll just.
Well, it's definitely a mutation because there are people born with extra chromosomes and other people who are intersexed come out of that. So yeah.
You're just a mutation. I don't know. I don't feel like I can speak about people like that.
No, but men, but I think that we can articulate this pejoratively, but if we're even in the medical field, even in like scientific communities, it's like a commonly understood and accepted biological reality. Like in every measure of life,
See, here's
men
my
fare
issue. Here's
worse
my
than
issue, though.
women.
Here's my
Well,
issue. Here's my
matter
issue,
of fact,
real quick.
that's why.
I muted you. I actually muted everyone. Here's my issue. I don't have the scientific literature in front of me to prove or disprove that there is a mutation on the band or whatever chromosome and that the intersex whoever has extra. I don't have that in front of me. I personally feel uncomfortable commenting on it or letting someone else comment on it without a citation. So I'm gonna need a citation or I can't give to the conversation.
Oh, you know me. I'm the gift that keeps giving, and I will continue to give to them the mutation that is the bandit. And like I've actually read studies, and and men want to like temper this, and they want to downplay it. And
I don't
like,
want to temper. I want a citation.
No. I don't mean I don't.
Why
mean
do we
you.
need a
Well, I don't mean
citation? We're
you.
women.
But I'm saying in general, like there's a reason that men.
Candace Owens says
men are
that
more
women out here need
to.
Candace Owens says that women out here need to close their legs, and the reason that essay happened is because women have their legs open. Should I believe her because she's a woman, or should I go out and do some research or request?
Well, sorry, what did Candace Owens say?
Women are. She used victim blaming, basically victim blaming women.
For what? No, like what did she say?
Well, that's an opinion. That's not like a fact. Like women can still have opinions.
Regardless of whether it's an opinion or a fact, I'm going to ask why she's saying what she's saying and what she's citing when she says that, because I do believe your opinion should be based on a fact. I believe even around something like that, I can make an opinion that's based on a fact. I believe her opinion around this situation is incorrect, or at least based on some incorrect data, and I can request that from her, as opposed to why would I need to do research? She's a woman.
Okay.
I mean, you would have to ask her.
I'm asking you. Well,
my name is Candace Owens.
I asked for citations. The response was, "Why would you need research? We're women."
I'm sorry. Who said that?
I said that.
Oh damn! Listen. All right. I'm the
public
defender.
We are the original people.
Let me litigate. I'm gonna step in. Just because we're women, no, we're not saying that we like. Okay, obviously we're not saying that, but I think it's like it's a commonly understood scientific fact that men are a mutation of women. Like
that's fine. Maybe I'm unaware of the common scientific fact, and that's fine. I would still need a citation, or I can go and do the research.
You wouldn't understand because you're a man. Like you're not going to understand it.
That's fine. What I said was I'm unaware of what you guys are talking about. I'm going to need to do the research myself, or I'm going to need you guys to provide a citation because I don't feel like I want to continue the conversation without one.
That's fine.
In my mind, I feel like a man would just say something. Like he wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, I'm going to look at the research, and if it confirms what you say, then I agree." I feel like a man would just be like, "You're wrong." Like I'm puzzled right now. Maybe it's me.
Okay, so maybe you know what I think it is, and this happened with Ebony, right? Even though objectively average is not bad, it's not pejorative. There are no negative connotations associated with being average. But black men are gonna whine, lie, cry, deny. They're gonna be willfully obtuse because they don't understand the English language. So if this is an issue with respect to maybe verbiage or lexicon,
it's not an issue with
take
verbiage.
Out the word mutation.
Again, it's not an issue with verbiage. I'm muting everyone on the panel.
He's having an issue with his understanding. That's what it is.
Excuse me. Hello.
Again, I'm going to mute everyone on the panel. I don't have an issue with the words y'all are using. I don't have an issue with the word mutation or the XY chromosome or I don't have an issue with that. You're saying it's common knowledge. I'm saying I'm unaware of what you guys are talking about. I'm going to need to do some independent research so that I can become aware, or I'm going to need y'all to provide some citations, because I can't believe a scientific hypothesis that y'all are giving me with no research. But like, I personally can't do that.
What do you
did
think?
the research.
Hold on. What do you think the hypothesis is that we're positing?
The hypothesis is that men are a mutation of women. That's fine. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is I would need to see the research. You're saying the research is common and out there. If I do the research, I assume I'm going to be able to find it, right? If I go home today and I do the research.
Or
you guys should be able to provide that research to me. Or
when this is over,
then you can put the link in the private chat and I can look at the research.
Okay, and I'll do that.
That's fine. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with y'all. I'm saying I don't have the.
Nobody needs you to agree or disagree. Who cares?
It feels like y'all are arguing with me because I said I need.
Hold on. Listen, guys. Listen.
Well,
we don't need Petty to agree or disagree. Who cares? We go whether he's right, we're wrong. Like, who cares? We're gonna keep it moving. Like, let's.
Excuse me. I did the research.
Moving.
I have the statistics right here. So there's no deep research. I'm going to tell you what I typed in the search, where I got my research from and what it says. So I typed in first, do all fetuses start out as female? And this is from the National Institute of Health.gov. The first thing that pops up, during early development, the gonads of the fetus remain undifferentiated. That is, all fetal genitalia are the same and phenotypically female. After approximately 6 to 7 weeks of gestation, however, the expression of a gene on the Y chromosome induces changes that result in the development of the testes. The next thing I looked up, I typed in the search, is the Y chromosome a mutation of the X chromosome? The first thing that popped up from the National Institutes of Health.gov, classically, Y chromosomes are thought to originate from X chromosomes through a process of degeneration and gene loss. So if we're talking about the scientific definition of a mutation, then based off of this, yes, the Y chromosome is a genetic mutation.
Okay, that's actually not what I found on the National Library of Medicine. I was researching this while you guys were speaking. What I found is that they kind of start undifferentiated. Maybe I read the research incorrectly, or maybe you have research that I do not have, which you just presented. That's fine. I think that was a much better answer than I'm a woman. So thank you at least for providing that education. Super chats that I tried to get through before this conversation. Thank you, by the way. I do mean that genuinely, not like to troll. Stuart, if you got smoke, take the link. No one needs to call her out. Yeah, I think Stuart has been in the chat. The link has been in the chat also. Stuart has not been clicking it, so it must be an all bark, no bite thing. That's fine. Babies all start out as XX Petty. Start there. I could do the research today, but I feel like what you provided was enough. I agree with you, Petty. The ladies are derailing. Afro Butterfly got smoke with y'all, apparently.
She can come up then. You can come up, Afro Butterfly. The only thing I'm gonna say is, we're female. I guess the original human was female, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, hello, beautiful Alicia, or Alicia. I'm sorry. I don't want to say it wrong. People say my name wrong all the time. Okay, so it seems like we're at a fork in the road. I'm standing 10 toes down, and I will say that
I'm standing 11 because it's a mutation.
Pardon?
I said I'm standing 11 toes down because it's a mutation.
Ooh. You see what she just did there?
Well, as a person who came from the Mana Spirited Themis and Thoth, I have been encouraged to require research before I believe something and not just listen to anything that come out of someone's mouth. I will, in my thoughts,
You mean out of a woman's mouth? Because I feel like if a man would have said it, you probably would have believed it.
I'd probably believe it less. But I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds to wrap up their thoughts. starting with Rochelle, then Deadbeat Apple, then Z. Actually, I don't know if Apple has spoken, so I'll give you a little longer.
Oh, hi everyone. Here's what I think, and I'm going to go back just a little bit. The United States is never going to get rid of their guns because it's a part of the Constitution, and we got real problems over here. So don't look to us for any kind of answers. We're to the point of we're saying red states and blue states, and we're supposed to be the United States. So God help us. As for the mutations, if they are mutations, here's the problem: we fell in love with our mutations, and we let them gain control, and that's our fault. So we need to fix it. Now, the thing about giving them vasectomies, it kind of bothers me on a human rights type of thing. Like, it's not cool. But then on saving myself, I'm like, yeah, go ahead and do it, because at the end of the day, I want to live and I want a good place for females and women to be. It won't get rid of the number of bandits all at once, but if they have vasectomies, they're not reproducing, and then they're just going to die off. And the good men are really not doing anything that much with the bandits, so I don't feel too bad about it. I think that's just about it for right now.
Thank you. Really quickly, someone said y'all are trolling me. Am I actually being trolled?
I mean, listen, if you get a taste of your own medicine, I'm not going to tell you whether it's happening or not happening, but your name is Petty. You are one of the most prolific trollers of all time. So listen, take your lumps like a man, and don't worry about that. Period.
Prince Petty, I would never do that to you, especially after Wesley Snipes. I would never do that.
Period.
Listen, and I want to say something as well, because people even message me privately on the back end and talking about Wesley Snipes was murked and this and that, so in an effort to redeem myself, because I don't deal with ugly, murked men in general, I don't care what your race is, you're going to look good if you're going to be around me. But if you think that Damson Idris? I think he's attractive. If you think he's attractive, put a 1 in the chat. If you think he's just another day, another bandit, put a 2. But I like Snowfall, and I think he's very attractive.
Thank you, Apple. Oops, my bad. Thank you, Apple, for joining. There's a ticking sound. Do we know where the ticking sound is coming from?
It's me. I'm driving. I'm turning.
Okay, well, we will let
it's
you
about
go.
To turn off.
We're going to give you 30 seconds right after I go through the super chats. Petty, appreciate your patience, professionalism, bro. Thanks. Cool. Awesome. Love it. Let me leave that up for a little bit. Yeah. Okay. The deadbeat auntie.
Yeah, I just really came up here to troll. I know some people caught it, some people didn't. I wasn't being serious. I was just up here trolling.
Don't tell him
when I was missing.
Oh my God!
Well, I didn't want him to get. I didn't want him to get in his XY chromosomes.
But you can't control it. We can't control their primitive nature.
Yeah,
let them lean into it. You have to it's like primates. Just let them lean into their base primitive nature. Damn! Don't tell them.
I just didn't want him to go cry in his little janitor closet later on.
Answer this question then. How come you were turning for 5 minutes? I heard that turning still on for a very long time.
Because I was crossing a railroad track and the people were crossing in front of me slow as hell, so I missed the light.
Okay.
Like the turn is like right at a railroad track.
It's okay. Listen. I would say that our variation or our mutation, they're not like, there's a reason that their insurance is higher, right? Like sometimes they see a red light and they think it means go. They have higher instances of fatal car accidents. So don't even bother explaining the whole, turning signal and waiting at the red light or at the stop sign. Just, leave the mutations alone.
Thank you for joining. I will try not to cry in my janitor closet tonight. No promises, but
Put
thank
the
you.
needle down. What I will say is, don't pick that needle up, and if you do, make sure it's sterile. Okay.
Look, if we want to talk about a needle, I will definitely rewind the tape and present on screen when you did the crackhead impersonation an hour ago.
Right. That's a testament to that's my acting acumen. Like my bag
I don't trust nobody
my
who
bag
act
is
that good. I
limitless.
don't
I
know.
can act like Pookie from New Jack City, like in 2.5 seconds. Okay.
Mm.
And I know I can act, I know how to act like an incel. I can channel the incel. You know what I'm saying? That's my acting acumen. So don't get mad.
Rochelle.
Don't lean into your primal impulses. Okay. Don't get
Rochelle.
violent. Relax.
Hello. Okay, so the last thing I will say is that with great power comes great responsibility, and the fact that women have the ability to bring life into the world is a great power which must be used responsibly. And because of that, I feel like many women need to, if possible, abstain from any intercourse if it's with a man that is definitely not treating you right or who has mannish fierce like tendencies or beliefs or thoughts. And honestly, like intercourse is not required for survival. So I think many people, many women should just, if possible, abstain for as long as possible. And that will probably get the men straightened out very quickly because, I mean, I think men will most likely do anything if they can to be able to have access again. So if you deny men access, I'm sure they will become gentlemen very quickly.
I would like to agree with that, but I feel like men will, to be PG, take matters into their own hands. I don't have that much faith in men that they will see that women want something and women will withhold themselves if they don't get that. Like, I actually think that's what we're in today. We're in a society where women are saying, for example, I want certain traits in a man in a relationship, specifically emotional availability, stability, and stuff like that, right? And men, instead of saying, oh, okay, well, women are literally choosing to not partner with us, there's a rise of lonely single men, right? So you would think men are going to do any and everything that they can to be able to partner with women and start meeting that standard, right? But instead, it feels like we're getting an increase in incels, right? It feels like we're getting an increase of men who, instead of rising to meet the standard, just want you to kind of accept them as they are. Why don't you want to date a bus driver, right? Girls don't want me. I'm such a nice guy.
Teddy, have you ever entertained the possibility that maybe they simply can't? And if they can, it's predicated on their ability to be in a position of power so that they can subjugate others and impose that power. Like, have you ever entertained the idea that maybe men are just like inferior and they need like a wheelchair ramp to go through life and do what they need to do at the same level as like maybe their creators, aka women?
So here's my
specifically, aka Black women.
Here are my thoughts. I don't think being a good person is like a superpower. I don't think having a stable income is a superpower. I don't
You don't
think
think being a good person is a superpower?
No.
Wow.
Is it like extremely difficult for you to be kind? I don't think so. I really don't. It's not
For
difficult.
some people, it is extremely difficult for them to be kind for a myriad of reasons. But go on.
I do not think it is extremely difficult for you to treat others how you would want yourself to be treated. I don't think it's extremely difficult for you to have an average income. I don't think it's extremely difficult for you to be able to learn some type of emotional regulation, right? I mean, not everybody can afford therapy or counseling or something, but just to do some introspect. I don't think these are superpowers. I think these are like normal things. The bar is pretty low, I'll admit it, but the bar is not the superpower. I think the bar is low. I don't think it's incredibly difficult for men to reach this. I just think they're choosing not to.
It doesn't have to be a superpower. It's just a requirement that they can't meet. It's not okay.
I think they can meet it. I don't think they want to.
Hold on, wait a minute. It's not a superpower, but objectively, it is extremely psychologically, it's extremely difficult to have to learn the capacity to introspect. That's a skill. Introspection is a skill. Communication is a skill. Even being kind in many respects is a skill. These are skills that you have to learn and develop over time. So if men are not able to cultivate these skills, like you saying it's not a superpower doesn't make men look any better. First of all, it's a requirement, I would say, at a baseline and
I'm not
human
trying to make
level
men look
that they
good.
can't.
I'm
It's a
trying to say
baseline
I
at the
think
human level that they can't meet.
again, I'm not trying to make men look good. I'm trying to say I think it is something that's achievable. I don't think it's even extremely difficult to achieve. I think the average person, the average man can achieve it. I just don't think they want to.
Why do you okay, so you think that they can and you think they don't want to. Why don't they want to?
Probably has to do with, I'm going to say, a little bit of societal conditioning as well as some personal what is it called when something's in the back of your mind, like some internalized views around patriarchy and how they feel like they want control over a woman. Could depend on what their father was like. And I mean, I think it could be a couple of different things related to your social conditioning and how you should be personally accountable for what you're doing as well.
Do you think that most men have a sort of baseline level or maybe like an undercurrent, some level of disdain for women as a class of people?
Yeah, I think.
Do you think that most men sort of are reviled by women?
Yeah, I would say everyone does, pretty much, at least in a patriarchy. Yeah.
Jesus. Snip, motherfuckers. Snip them. You heard that.
Yeah, but I don't think you should I don't think you should get some permanent surgery because you're a misogynist. Otherwise, a bunch of men and women are going to be getting vasectomies and tubal ligations.
Oh yes, but that's why I think I know you're saying that men would probably take it into their own hands, but that's why I think like not onus, but I think since women have the ability to have children, I think they should definitely withhold it. And even if certain men do take it in their own hands, I mean, we do have the legal system, so we could use that to hopefully imprison men who would do those kinds of acts.
If I had respectfully, if I had a nickel for every time a man was not subject to due process or was not locked up for a crime he did in fact commit, if I had a nickel for every man who was not locked up, I would be a billionaire and probably not having this conversation right now with anybody. So we're going to be honest about the legal system insofar as it is broken and it does lean in favor of men. Again, in a patriarchy, everything is, even if it's only marginally, in a patriarchy, everything is going to lean in favor of men so that men can continue to be degenerate bandits with impunity. As long as the right people don't see, more or less, you can be a bandit, just make sure you're quiet about it. And that's the way a patriarchy works. That's the reality.
That is true.
So I don't know who wants to live in a world where the idea that most men feel or have a level of disdain for women, like that's sad. That's really sad. That's really sad.
Well, when you say disdain, what do you mean? I'm speaking generally about misogyny.
Yeah, disdain and misogyny, I would say, they go hand in hand.
Okay, yeah, well, we agree. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello. Back again. So I want to start by saying this just to make sure that I have permission. So I want to present this information, the point I was talking about. And I also did some research just because everybody in the chat is saying that the things that we're talking about are misinformation. So I wanted to make sure that I had some research to back this. And I want to read the research, which will add links to this. So I wanted to make sure that that was okay with you guys. If not, we don't have to do all of that.
Well, you're going to have to get it in
your I'm
30
the leader.
seconds.
I'm a more effective leader. And I say to you, yes, read on.
Okay. So I'm going to start with my hypothesis. So men created patriarchy because nature is not in their favor. Most men would die sad, lonely virgins without patriarchy. And it makes sense that white men would be the most privileged by patriarchy because they have the least desirable traits. For example, light skin, they'd be out there burning in the sun, right? And Black men have the most desirable traits, which is dark skin, higher muscle mass, etc. So that is why we see in 2023, they are pushing racist policies and anti-woman/gay policies. They are trying to manipulate natural selection. And we see examples of this in nature where males will manipulate natural selection in order to reproduce. And as humans, we obviously they do it. Animals do it subconsciously. But as humans, we have a conscious mind. So men are consciously manipulating natural selection because if women had the ability that they have naturally, most of them, we don't need a large percentage of men to reproduce. We're already severely overpopulated. The way that the men have been operating has literally been killing the earth. The earth is dying because of all of the things that men have introduced. I know that men have done a lot, but if we're looking at the overall, the things that men have contributed, if overall are net negative because they have destroyed the literal environment, the only one that we know of that can sustain human life.
And I just want to say, because everybody's like literally losing it in the chat. She's not saying that white men are the least desirable in terms of their She's talking about genetically speaking. Genetically speaking, there are more genetic disorders associated with lighter skin than there are with darker skin. I don't know why people are crying. Like, you guys, these guys, like, when I say that they will clock a Black male worshiper, they're gonna clock you. Like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, and I'm not saying I think we should dismantle patriarchy, period. So this is not about who's a better leader. This is simply going off of what we see. Okay, we see how the system is set up. Now we're explaining, okay, why the system is set up this way, why white men are at the top, why Black people have been subjugated. Like, realistically speaking, genetically, if we were all to go back to nature, who is going to survive the longest simply based off of their phenotype? People who have darker skin, people who have higher muscle mass. Like, I'm not doing the race thing, but like, we're really at this point when we're having a conversation, we need to destigmatize race. We need to destigmatize these social, I can't think of the word, but like just these social creations that, like, there's a reason for everything being the way it is, patriarchy being, the big bad wolf, and everything else falling under it. But I wanted to present my research for the conversation that we were having. When this research is for the conversation that you guys are having about petty arguing that social influence, social
Yeah,
yeah.
Socialization
Has more, thank you. Socialization has more influence over biology, and I have the research for that. Also, this is just a quick, all of this is from the national, hold on, let me see. All of this research is from the National Institute of Health.gov. It's peer reviewed, all of these fun things. They have lots of citations in here, but I'm not going to list all their citations. We don't have time for that. So we're going to start with this. Testosterone and how it affects the brain. The amygdala plays a pivotal role. Oh, it's also, there's a lot of big words here. If I misspeak, don't do too much, guys. I'm trying my best.
Hold on. Just for the sake of brevity, as the more logical and effective leader, for the sake of brevity, what in summarizing the study, what would you say the conclusion is? So like if you had to summarize it.
If I had to summarize it, the conclusion is that biology has more influence because of testosterone's effect on the brain in comparison of men and women.
Okay.
So
Eddie, does that make sense to you?
I would need to see the study. I would actually need to read that study because the implications of that I think are pretty severe. I would need to read that to believe that, because I believe that, like, for example, the idea that consent, for example, being one of the more extreme ones as a social construct, which I do believe it is, and the idea that social conditioning cannot stop a man's biology. This actually, it feels like a line almost with Fresh and Fit, almost with Rollo, insofar as how they say we can't prevent men from having sex, for example. We can't. It's a man's biological urge. We can't stop them from having sex, to the point where
That's not
the
what I
only thing we
said.
can prescribe. You're saying that the biological aspect is more important than the social conditioning, which I don't believe.
I didn't say that it was more. I said that they interact with each other. I almost in equal measure. I would tip the scale to genetic predisposition.
Yeah, and the research that I've presented actually speaks on how social structures affect just male biology. So I just wanted to start with this. So as somebody asked, what is the study on? So the first study is testosterone and aggressive behavior in man. And then the other study is, let me see, on the effects of testosterone on brain behavioral functions.
So when it comes to how this looks practically, would what Fresh and Fit say regarding men being unable to keep it in their pants, men being able to practice sexual discipline, you guys don't think this is something we could socially condition men to do or improve on because the biology trumps it? Or what is this saying? I guess I'm asking.
I listen, I would say that, of course, socialization and I guess the advent of criminalizing violence and behavior, of course you're going to have a lot of men who are going to adhere to that, and a lot of men who are going to sort of learn to mitigate some of their impulses, or people in general are going to mitigate their impulses, because that's how you run a functional and safe society. But if that were the case for all men, incarceration wouldn't be as large a problem as it is. There are some men who are not as I guess predisposed to that type of that same self-control, where they are able to adhere to social norms. They are able to adhere to the laws and the regulations and the social contract that we all tacitly sign when we agree to engage with other people in our community. But the reality is there are some people who forego all rules and regulations, who are perpetual and chronic line steppers, and as a result, clink clink is where you must be and where you must go and where you must die. And that's just a reality.
I'm still confused. What is the implication as far as men like being unable to control themselves sexually, violently? Like, I don't understand what this means practically. I feel like it's going over my head.
I'm going to read this short passage of research that I got. So it says the amygdala plays I accidentally scrolled past. The amygdala plays a pivotal role in neuroendocrine network by controlling perception and processing emotions. Cortisol receptors are also expressed in the amygdala neurons, as well as in serotonergic receptors. These two chemical agents act antagonistically to testosterone in the manipulation of the subcortical emotional activity and the restraining interference of the prefrontal cortex. The GnRH LH testosterone axis is closely linked with the CRH. Okay, I'm just going to say the abbreviations because these are big words. ACTH cortisol axis, and each of their end products, testosterone and cortisol, respectively influence the opposite axis. In a pilot study of salivary testosterone and cortisol interrelationships, it was found that higher testosterone levels and lower cortisol levels are associated with higher levels of anger. Testosterone is in the hypothalamus exerts an inhibitory action on CRC, and the antidiuretic hormone induces a reduction in cortisol production.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. I don't want to stop you.
You're good. You're good.
If we're to summarize, like in summation, you were saying that to say about men and their inhibitory.
Maybe because
inhibitory systems.
Y'all have lost me.
She's talking about the inhibition inhibitory systems. What's the summation though?
So the summation essentially is saying that stressful situations like trauma inflict significant inhibition on testosterone secretion. So higher testosterone levels or an increase are associated with aggressive behaviors. And here, motivational drives are mediated by punishment and reward and expressed by approach and avoidance tendencies. So essentially what it's saying is testosterone is linked to aggressive behaviors. Cortisol is supposed to be there to be antagonistic to inhibit testosterone. But when more testosterone is present, it prevents cortisol levels from rising. So like they have a higher propensity for aggression. Like these behaviors that they're exhibiting are biological.
So in my mind, biologically, you say that men have a higher propensity for aggression due to testosterone, right? Which I would agree with. I think it's more important that we find out a way in society to accommodate this so that men are less likely to commit. I don't know if accommodate was the right word. So that men are less likely to commit violence. Maybe we should teach our sons to be more kind to people. Maybe we should teach our sons to not like throw stuff if they get mad. We should teach them healthy ways. So in my mind, the social part is going to be much more important than the biological part, because socially, if you have a man or any man who's more inclined to be aggressive and you put him in a household where his parents encourage that type of behavior versus a household where the parents discourage it, I assume in the household where they discourage it, he's probably going to be less violent. To me, that feels like the social conditioning is much more important than whatever biology.
Right, but they have
not to say that biology is unimportant, but again, I'm going to need to.
Listen,
I would have to be independent, because like you just read that at me and I feel like it went over my head. Like I didn't understand it at all.
Okay,
Outside of men have a higher propensity.
I understand what she's saying, but at the end of the day, it's like science, psychology, these fields of study are always changing. But what we know presently is that environment and biology, so nature and nurture, they interact together symbiotically, and there's no divorcing the two. But obviously there are extenuating circumstances. For example, when you have a child who's raised in a home with two good parents, they have never been exposed to abuse or anything like that, but they grow up and they live in great communities, safe communities. So even culturally, or their socialization hasn't exposed them to violence or anything like that. In their formative years, when their brains are still making connections and developing, and they grow up and they become like serial killers, or they engage in nefarious criminal conduct. So
again, I'm confused, because what I said was, regardless of whether or not you're born with more or less testosterone, what's probably going to be more important is the nurture part. Whether or not you have parents.
You're saying that men are not being nurtured enough by women, society. They're not being nurtured enough to mitigate the negative consequences of testosterone.
I just wanted to add very quickly, based on my research, I'm not going to do the whole list, but testosterone has a negative effect on spatial abilities being defined as the capacity to understand, reason, and remember the visual and spatial relations among objects or space. So I'm not saying that socializing wouldn't work, but socializing is not like, I feel like kind of the way that your argument is going, Petty, is that you're kind of making it seem like socialization would be an easy route But socializing men to go against their testosterone is going to be very difficult because it actively is blocking them from being able to understand and reason.
I don't buy that. The reason I don't buy that is because that sounds like what Fresh and Fit say regarding men going against their nature to have something, for example, like sexual discipline and not needing to sleep with 50 women. I don't think there's like this. I really believe stuff like this is social. I don't believe that men biologically have the urge to sleep with 100 different. I really don't. I believe that generally most things that we ascribe to biology, I think, are more social conditioning than not. So I'm going to need I'm going to need to do more research. I personally believe nurture is a lot more important than nature. So
Yeah.
that
So how
I'm
have men been nurtured up to this point, and by who?
I mean, I think men have been nurtured to engage with their violence. I think men are told that aggression, for example, is like just what men do. Oh, this is just how men are. If a woman a girl throws a tantrum, for example, I think, oh, that's unladylike. She'll get the type of socialization where it's like, no, you need to align more with your with what it means to be a woman, right? Insofar as being nonviolent. But if a man is throwing chairs or he's going outside being aggressive, pushing people, a lot of people will say that's just boys being boys, and they'll get a kind of social reinforcement of those negative behaviors. So no, I don't believe men are out here being taught to stop throwing chairs or punching holes in walls, at least not in a meaningful way.
Wait a minute. So wait a minute. Hold on. So you don't think that a huge part of the feminist movement was to address that?
I mean, I think it's been probably better now than it has been in the past. Like it's no longer illegal to beat your wife, I don't think, but I still think that men are socially conditioned to still engage in aggressive behavior and think of aggression as something that men just happen to do.
Right, but they're socially engineered by whom?
I mean, society, their parents,
No, not
other
society.
men,
Not society. No, we like
their parents, other men, friends in the community, probably themselves, reinforcing themselves, watching Fresh and Fit.
who establishes and who defines these archetypes? What it means to be a man, what it means to be strong, what power means. Who defines this? Men or women?
It doesn't matter. We're talking
It
about
does matter.
it doesn't, because this is
It
all
does.
it's social conditioning. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. My
Yeah, of
argument ain't
course.
about who it. My
Wait a minute,
argument is
please.
not about who it's coming from. My argument is that it's social conditioning. We can say it's social conditioning from men. I would agree with you. More than women or more than anyone else, it's probably from men. I would agree with you, but it's still social conditioning. And if we somehow got all men to start socially conditioning other men to be less violent, and oh, violence isn't the way for a man, you should actually protect your family, you should be something like this, instead of like this is just something men do and it's just a part of natural male aggression, then I believe that men would probably be less violent, because I believe nurture is more important than nature. So yeah, I mean, I don't care who's doing it. Well, I do care, but as far as me believing it's nurture, I don't care.
Well, I think that women for a very long time have been trying to cultivate a new archetype, and they've been trying to socialize men in a way that is more advantageous to themselves and their human nature. And I think that men listen, men said, bye, Felicia, not today. Okay. Men don't, like in general, we know. And that's the reason why it matters. You can say it doesn't matter who's saying it. It doesn't matter who's pulling the strings. It does matter, because when women speak, men don't listen. You said yourself that most men don't respect women. They don't value women. They're not going to take into account the validity of what a woman says more than what a man says. So who's saying it matters? Who's doing it matters?
I'm not sure what you're arguing. My argument was that nurture matters more than nature does.
Right, but men are nurturing this degeneracy.
Okay, but they're nurturing. So you're
matters.
saying that the men nurturing this matters, right? And I would argue that it matters more than like the biological masculine urge to throw a chair across the room.
So I'd like to add a slight caveat. I think that you both are saying the same thing and not realizing it. Starting with Annalicia, I'm going to say that men are not going to be able to nurture because their testosterone levels, like the effects that testosterone has on the brain, it makes it much harder for them to empathize. So I definitely believe that nurturing is the route, but men are not going to be able to do that for other men currently where we are. Like that's definitely going to have to be something that women take the initiative to do. And that's kind of the woman's choice based off of all the things that men have done to oppress us. I feel like, women should be able to choose whether or not we rehabilitate men, and we because we've done so much already for the world, like just socially. We've already done so much. Like essentially women are going to have to reverse everything that men did. So yeah, like it's really, I agree with you, Petty, and I agree with you, Annalicia, but that's the women's choice. It's really our choice to decide whether or not we feel they're worthy of rehabilitation, essentially the nurturing.
Um,
Do you think that these bandits as a degenerate group are worth rehabilitating, Petty?
I mean, I think men should talk to other men generally. I guess you can as a woman, but I wouldn't prescribe it to women. I
So,
think
but so if we know that testosterone has a negative effect on the brain, and when men discussed it with other men, we ended up with patriarchy, I don't understand why we're giving the same problem, like saying that the problem is the solution. Like men are not going to be able to teach other men how to nurture. That is, women having kids biologically changes a woman. It chemically changes her brain in order to make her more empathetic, in order to give her that quote unquote provide and protect for their children. And that's why men are able to step out and women are not. Women have the innate ability to nurture. Men don't have that ability. If they did, they wouldn't be walking out on their children at such a high rate. Black men, white men, like any race of men, this wouldn't be happening if they were able to nurture and teach how to nurture.
even that I believe is social more than biological.
So,
But I guess we will
The
all.
reality is that men don't listen to women, men don't respect women, men don't value women. So, and quite frankly, niggas aren't listening to each other either. So it's either snip snip or pew pew. Either way, I mean, like you're gonna go one way or another. Is
So
the way
y'all
that
don't
it's
believe y'all don't
the
believe
way that it's starting to sound.
y'all don't believe, for example, we can socialize men to raise their kids, and that
I
there are.
I definitely think that we can. I'm just saying that the men, as they are now, are not going to be able to teach other men, and for a long time, because you have to think this is going to be something that every male is going to have to be taught from birth because of their biology. With women, it's more innate. Of course, this is something that has to be taught like everything else, but it's more innate to us. It's not innate for men. This is going to have to be something we do with every male that is born into the world. And it's going to have to be women's job until men are conditioned that way.
We are missing the third solution, which Chica has just provided regarding giving the homies head. I believe that men's issues are for men to deal with. That's just how I feel about it. But I guess we will disagree there. Thank you, Z, for coming up. I'm going to try to close out now because we were actually supposed to end at the 1 hour mark, and we're 3 hours and 15 minutes in.
Z, I love you. Please come back. Come back.
Yes,
Back
of
next
course.
week.
I watch you. I literally watch every single live. I love you guys so much. All of the talking points. I know that Themis isn't here, but hello, Themis. Good night, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. I love you. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you, Z. She don't know that Themis, so everybody doesn't know that Themis is in the back, and I just don't let him up on stage because I have power now. Haha. And I can mute people. I like that.
Or you
I
have
will.
black men in power.
What's that you said?
Have a
All right. We're abusing that mute button today. We're going to do it. Yep. We're going to be the same black man. We are going to take control of that power that we're giving you guys.
Don't do that again, Petty. Don't play with me either.
Super chats. Tara Toy says, Petty, appreciate your patience and professionalism. Bro, thanks. Oops, we already read that one. Why did I go back to that one? Oh my goodness. I'm so embarrassed. Lex
It's
the
okay.
Lion.
It's your male nature. It's not your fault.
Absolutely. We know that the biological masculine urge to hit the mute button is going to prevail every time. Lex the Lion
It's
says,
just it's the male's biological propensity towards remediation, like remedial, you know. It's like a tick. Cognitive.
remedial. I like
cognitive
it.
delay.
Lex the Lion says, can we just expect men to just be better and stop excusing their mess by putting the responsibility for them to change on women? Oops, I think that was for
The
Z.
The responsibility is not on women, because women they don't care about what women think. Like men perform for other men. Maybe the solution is just to go back to the good old days in Greece. I think men should partner up and do their thing, and then let evolution take care of those men naturally and organically. But men don't care about what women have to say. They don't care. The only thing, this is when a man is going to care what you have to say. Okay.
Well,
what time are you coming? Are you wearing panties? They don't care if you're on. They're not going to ask you about birth control either. How many kids do you have? And even still, that really doesn't matter. But listen, if you want bandits to leave you alone, just tell them you're a feminist. Just say I'm a feminist. And listen, a feminist, especially to black men, is like Ebola. If you say to a black man, yeah, I'm a feminist. Oh, what wave? The 30th wave feminist, like the combined intersectionality, intraracial feminism. That's like, you might as well tell them that you have Ebola and like HIV. They are not going to want to deal with you. Okay, so just tell them you're a feminist of some kind. Make something up, because they're too remedial to really know anything about feminism, clearly, and you'll be okay. But in general, I mean, men don't listen to you anyways. Don't listen to you. They don't care what you have to say. They assume you're a feminist anyways, unless you're groveling at their dusty, their dusty feet, and kissing their toe jam. They're going to think you're a feminist. So like, you can't win for losing with bandits. So snip snip, pew pew, and let's go back to the good old days in Greece. I think that's what Kevin Samuels was trying to do. I believe that's what the lead adulterer is trying to do. He's really any male that says we don't need women, we need each other, men. Yeah, that's what they said in Greece too. They did okay without the STIs and the deaths. But anyways, what were you saying?
I was thanking Apple for her super sticker.
Oh, we love
and
Apple.
I was just over here resting in my masculinity and letting you take the charge. Women are leaders 2023. That's my belief, and I'm sticking to it. CJ, thank you, Apple, for the super sticker. CJ says, why is there such a need for this concept of high value man? I hope you not talk about the concept they didn't define, because there isn't a need for it. But thank you. And also, what is the study question? Sounds like it's about aggression and impulsivity. Yeah, I think so. As well as, I guess, testosterone having negative effects on the brain. But I didn't catch everything. So
yeah, that was the summation. It was the impact of testosterone, the neurological and cognitive impact of testosterone on the brain in the defective and mutated male. So, we don't make the rules. It is what it is. The mutation is what it is. The variation, the variant, it is what it is. But you know what? It's like the coronavirus. Men are not going anywhere. They're just going to continue to find a way to mutate and regenerate. So we have to figure out a way to deal with them. And I think Rollo is onto something. So yeah, I think males, anybody in the red pill, any bandits in their mom's basement, I think that's something, just consider it, you know, maybe.
Well, I guess we will close out on that. Sam's Club is now closed, so I won't get to pick up my groceries today. Thanks for that, everybody. But I can still go to Walmart, so that's what I'm gonna do. With that being said, thank you everyone for coming. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you have not already. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you have not already. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you have not already. I've been taking lessons from Dr. Umar. He says to repeat things 3 times because people will. Walmart delivers, but Sam's Club doesn't, and I need some stuff in bulk. I'm preparing for the apocalypse because I'm not about to be out here like y'all. I'm buying all the toilet paper. I'm buying everything that I need because I saw what was on the news yesterday and I didn't like it. So, yeah. I will end on that. Actually, you can close us out to some dance pop.
Why did I have no say in the music?
Okay, Idgab, make sure to leave a like on your way out.
Well, wait a minute, because we don't give advice. We love you. Thank you guys for coming out. We don't give advice, but snip, snip, and we love you. Good night, guys.